Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightbringers Podcast, episode 52. We're going to be going over the balance patch. Well, we're going to be watching one along the balance, not the balance patch, but the balance preview for Guild Wars 2. If you do want to follow along, you're welcome to. Live, as well as on the YouTubes and Spotify's and all the other things. We've got amazing guests. We've got Kroof, the Crichton Herald, and also Boots. Hello everyone, I hope you're good. We're going to not do intros today.
Okay.
Makes sense.
We're going to try and also to, where we can, let them talk while they're talking, and then we'll kind of comment as we go. And then we can go back at times and look at the things, because there could be a lot of interesting stuff coming up.
Welcome, everybody, to the Guild Wars 2 live stream for the June 27th balance patch. I am Roy Marks, and I'm joined today by our Skills and Balance team lead, Cal Cohen. Cal, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well, Died to Guardian NPC Roy Marks.
Excuse me?
Oh, God.
You know.
This sounds like an inside
First time
joke.
I saw that. Yeah, obviously, it's been a while since we've done one of these.
Got some, there we go. That's better. Okay.
Having fun, Roy. Good start. We're actually live, and Roy's just figuring things out. Yeah, so there's a balance update at the end of the month. We are here to preview some of the changes, and as always, we'll be posting the release notes on the forums after.
I think we're in
have a bunch of feedback. Get ready to
the evil universe.
type all that up on the forums. We'll obviously be taking a look.
The alternate universe
as usual,
where
there will be some things
some
in
people
this
have goatees
stream
when they usually don't.
that we cover that are not in the preview post, just due to the nature of how we send text to get.
We can hear you thumping,
localized.
crying out.
There's a time between then and the actual stream where we're still doing a bit of work.
Sorry.
And there will be probably some additional changes that will not even be previewed on this stream based off feedback and just some other things that we're working on for the actual patch.
I'm sorry.
So
Roy
keep
is
all of that in
heartbroken.
mind. This might be a long stream today, Roy. There's a lot of
Yeah.
patch.
We got a pretty good patch here. Obviously, we did have a little bit of a teaser, and I saw a couple people trying to figure out what we were going for that, or with that. We'll show that in a moment. But yeah, good big patch coming up for June. And yeah, I think, as Cal said, make sure we can hop into it. Make sure you check out the forums after the end of the stream, as all the notes will be there in case you missed anything while we go over it on the stream. Obviously, there will be the VOD as well that you can watch back. But yes, make sure to go to the forums. And of course, as always, we will be checking out the forums for your feedback there, as well as other sources of feedback. So make sure you post your feedback there as well. And yes, let us
I'll post
get
my
underway.
feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing your part, Boots.
Before we dive into
on the
anything
forums,
particular, we
or
do actually have a team
on
update.
Somewhere.
Somewhat
Discord.
related to the
The private
balance
Discord.
patch, because the balance team has a team update. We have a new member on the skills team.
Ooh.
Joined, I don't even remember. I already forgot. But some of you may know him as Trig in game. He has some real name that I definitely don't remember. But he's joined the skills and balance team recently, so any changes in this update that you don't like, they are probably his doing. Still kind of learning the ropes and getting used to how things work around here. But jokes aside, we're pretty happy to have him on the team. He's doing a lot of great work so far, and some of it you will probably actually like from this balance patch.
All right.
Yeah. Well, if that's not extremely strong praise, I don't know what is. But let's get into it. So we got a little bit of a general sort of overview, which we did talk about previously as well, the forums. But yeah, we've got improving the feeling of moment-to-moment gameplay for many boon support builds. So specifically looking at a lot of quickness and alacrity
That's the
type
just not
builds.
spamming well.
Just trying to make the gameplay sort of loops
I'm
for those
excited for
specs feel a lot better. We got some alternate play styles for some specializations, tuning up some underutilized weapons and solidifying their roles within their professions. And finally, we've removed almost all of the traits that have CDR baked into them, and where applicable, rolled that CDR into the
CDR,
skills
not
baseline.
ICD. Okay.
Yeah, so in this case, we've hit most of the utility skill cooldown reduction traits.
Right.
There might be one or two left. We haven't gotten quite to all of the profession mechanic or weapon skill types cooldown
So
reduction
that
traits,
goes even
but they are
further
still
into
on our
maybe they're
radar.
gonna allow
And just to reiterate some of
more
the
weapon choice in the future.
Potentially, yeah. I think so.
The idea of removing the
They're not doing the elite specializations. They've got to do something, right? They've got to change. They've got to bring something pretty wild in.
play like shouts on Guardian. We don't really want you to feel like Pure Voice is a required trait. It should be a nice value add, but it shouldn't be the case that you must play this trait to have a lot of value out of shouts. And this is something that we
Oh wait, this is
currently do
skill
see
type
when
is specific
is tied to the trait.
recharge
So
reduction,
it
not
becomes mandatory, and we have to
not
balance around
weapon
the trait.
specific.
Yeah, they
We
said
have to
mostly for this
assume that
patch,
the
its
traits are being
utility,
taken,
they're going
and
to
that
do
the skill
profession
will get a certain
mechanic and weapons
cooldown,
like
and so when
sometime in the
you aren't able to
future
take that
and
trait,
tackle
the
that.
cooldown is
Oh.
probably a bit higher than is actually
They already have
the
done some weapons
proper
though.
number for the skill, so it does just make those builds a bit weaker. As we remove the CDR from traits, we're hoping that this just makes these skills a bit more available to any build of those profession, able to play like shouts or meditations or any of these things. In this patch, we'll see that a few of these traits are being either reworked or buffed up a little bit, trying to make sure that these traits still have value in the absence of cooldown reduction. We might, miss the mark on a couple of these, but as with a lot of our larger changes to the game, we'll be keeping a close eye on how these traits end up being after the patch and after people get their hands on them, and we'll, continue to iterate and make sure that these are
Oh yeah,
viable
I wonder
traits
what's going to
going
happen to the Firebrand
Moving
mantra
forward,
trait if
a
they're removing the
couple sort
cooldown
of
from it. It'll do
general
nothing
specific
basically.
changes as well. Al, if you want to talk about those again.
Sure. Yeah, so some general stuff before we hop into the teaser and the profession updates. Obviously, anyone watching the stream can read, but we are updating flanking. This is, anything that cares about striking from behind or beside an enemy. We found that there's definitely some endgame situations where this isn't super reliable. Some bosses will just flip around so quickly that it's difficult to flank, or some are either impossible to flank or it's very unclear how you are actually flanking this boss. So it makes a lot of
so
these
just for
tools, a lot of these build components
PvP
a
then
bit less
it's still gonna happen. Yeah, so just for PvP, but
and this
PvP is gonna stay the
similar
same.
to what we did
Yeah.
Yeah.
with
Is that
effectively
what we
for
said?
like a disabled foe. We
Okay, so
decided
now
to
you
like
can
PvP,
backstab the
defiant
face of
only
bosses.
controls.
You could be a
So you
face
can,
backstabber.
get your
Ah.
front stabs in and still get
Front stabs, there you go.
maximum value, when playing Dagger Thief. And the goal here is, just
Seems
make it a
weird.
bit more reliable. Make sure that if you are playing a build that relies on flanking, it will be pretty consistent across all encounters.
That is good though for rating.
On a somewhat similar note with Confusion, we're adjusting it again in PvE to reduce the on activation trigger and bump up the pulse
Again.
damage just to make it more consistent.
Not
Make sure it
again,
blows out
surely.
a little bit less on some of the bosses that attack very, very quickly. We see that, especially Mesmer builds that are very reliant on Confusion can just their damage numbers can fluctuate very significantly based off what encounter you're fighting in, and that makes it a bit more difficult to balance the profession.
Wow,
and
that's a
make sure that
big
it's
difference.
good on all encounters
Oh,
without
what
being
a
too strong in other
difference.
encounters. So this is just a step in that
But
direction.
yeah, they're only
making
boosting the damage over
Confusion a
time
bit
by
less, a
like
bit lower variance.
50%, maybe a bit more, but they're reducing the on activation by like down to a third.
Now it is time to take a quick look at the teaser, which we did tweet out.
Look at the teaser, the
Guild
teaser.
Wars to Twitter. It was on Monday, but we'll obviously just show it again here in stream.
Why
Saw
are we
quite a few
showing this
people,
again?
I think guess almost everything that was in this.
I think I
tell us.
did.
Which is pretty typical. I think every teaser we've ever put out has been unfortunately kind of busted pretty fast.
So they are
But,
reworking
one thing
Thief
that people
Signets
maybe
then?
miss is that
Thanks.
all ranger pets are now
Who
pink
knows?
moas.
Yes,
Wait,
we've
what?
disabled all ranger pets other than pink moa, and luckily the pink moas will not share cooldowns with each other. So when you have two pink
Oh, good.
moas, you can freely use both.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously a couple of secret meanings to this image. Spectre weapon swap will be locked, except not really. As usual, there is no second weapon equipped in this image, and I think I still saw at least one person get tricked by that, so we'll probably continue to include that in these teasers going forward. Obviously, the meat of the secrets are, let's see, Spectre applying AoE barrier with 3 initiative missing. Very interesting.
Why is
We'll
that
talk about
interesting?
They
later
could
with the
already do
ability
that.
profession. There's a
Oh.
spirit spawning. The Asura in this image is a ranger, as many people noticed. A spirit is being cast at a ground target location, perhaps, or at least a ranged location. And there's a Mirage mirror on the screen for some reason.
Yeah.
But we'll
For
get
some
to
reason.
that later.
We'll have to find out later on what that's about. Yeah.
That may be a Mirage that spawned a Mirage mirror.
I did also see some people thinking that we were adding War Clock to Conquest, which I thought was a pretty interesting idea. That'll potentially take some more implementation and iteration.
What?
So not quite for this patch, but
Maybe
Moving on.
the Faux Fire Lord will ride a Warclaw into battle.
indeed. But all right, so moving on, we are going to start with
Yes!
Ranger. Obviously, as Cal pointed out, we got a couple notes there just from
Spirit
teaser.
work.
So we're going to be reworking
Why
Sword.
quickness
We're
untamed?
going to be reworking Spirits, as we sort of pointed out in that teaser. Some adjustments to nature, magic. Alacrity is now going to be tied to Druid.
There we go. Okay,
Druid
that
also
was the
has
problem I pointed out a long time ago, right?
And Quickness will now be on Untamed.
All right.
So a lot there for Ranger, and we'll obviously
So
show
that
some of this
means-
stuff off in
Okay, that's
in-game
perfect.
as well.
Great. That means they could put quickness on something
Big,
else.
little bit of a
Yeah.
change up there to
Right.
sword.
I think
doing
we're
it on
starting with
Untamed.
Sword for some reason. Who made these slides? Should have started with the. I made the slides, but we probably should have started with Spirit Rework. Anyway,
Can't blame me
we
this time.
reworked Sword. This is one of the things that we hinted toward or kind of revealed in the last studio update as well. That
That
Ranger
means they're
Sword is on the
probably
list
also
of
going to rework.
weapons that we're looking to
Warrior
kind of
quickness.
solidify their roles for and
Maybe.
make sure they have, be a strong weapon and have a well-defined role. So the role or identity of Ranger Sword is very much that mobility aspect, and that is something that exists with Ranger Sword already, but it is just a little bit clunky, I would say, in its current implementation. So while we also want to make it more of a viable power DPS weapon, we've also added a bit more to that mobility side of things by, well, as we see with the patch notes here, Serpent Strike. This is now the 3 skill. It's going to be honestly pretty similar to Monarch's Leap, but it has a nice Serpent Strike animation or effect tied to it. It's not going to be an evade, so that's obviously going to be on a much higher cooldown, but it's going to give you a little bit of a more reliable defensive mechanic that doesn't really put you out of position like the current sword evade does. And then Pounce is going to be the new 2-slot skill. We'll see an icon that some people may recognize from the past will be taking the spot of Monarch's Leap, but this is going to be a little bit of a shorter leap, but more of that eviscerate type animation, that eviscerate type length. And this is going to be just the primary damage skill of the weapon. It's going
2
to do
leaps.
a little bit more mobility and a lot of power damage.
And of it.
A couple more updates on this screen that we can see. Increased farsighted damage, great. And Strider Strength. This is a rework to the sword trait as we're looking to remove the cooldown reduction. We figured that, quickness already doesn't play super well with the sword kit because it has so many mobility skills that aren't affected by quickness. So retooling this into a bit
What was
more of
Strider's
just
defense again?
a more potent damage trait.
Gain
We're going to
quickness
see,
when you
power
evade.
plus power when wielding a sword, and then might to kind of tie into that evade
think.
fluid gameplay mechanic.
Absolutely, yeah. And
On any evade.
we'll show the Ranger
Yeah.
Sword off in a minute. I think probably after we talk a little bit about this slide, which we will also be showing in game in a moment. So spirits have been reworked. Obviously, previously or currently on live, spirits are the way that Ranger gets alacrity. So that is no longer going to be the case. As we said, we're going to be moving that to Druid. So spirits are now going to grant an initial effect when summoned. They will then slam the ground for a secondary effect, and then grant boons to nearby allies for a period of time. And so just rework to spirits, and again, as we mentioned before, they will now be ranged cast abilities.
Yeah, so we'll show this up on stream, and it's really just kind of condensing a lot of the spirit behavior into a bit of a shorter time frame. So spirits aren't gonna be damageable anymore. They're not gonna persist for a very long time. Roy's showing off on stream right now. You see it pops in. There's gonna be initial effect when it pops in. Then it's gonna do its nice little ground slam, do a larger effect there, and then do a little bit of a shake to do that boon application.
So they don't stay.
And then
They
it's going to go
away.
away. So a bit
Yeah.
more, condensed into a smaller time.
It doesn't look
frame.
like they
So
exist as
assuming
things
it's
you
gonna
can
be a
kill.
little
It's literally
more
just
reliable
it's just a well now.
and
Yeah,
add a bit more
it's just a little-
power to.
Although,
that
have they
effect.
changed them? No,
It's
there's
not going to be something
they're
that's just
still
always on,
secret.
always
Okay.
giving some amount of value to nearby players.
not
And then
secrets.
also probably
I
good to
think I
notice
like
is that Nature's
I mean, nobody really
Vengeance
liked
is
having
also gonna be
spirits
reworked,
go
so
around with
spirits
you,
will slam a
but
second time
or
when
being
they finish
still
shaking.
even.
So I'll just whip
Nobody
that
likes
back
spirits.
around.
Wait,
that
this is
much.
an interesting Grandmaster.
So obviously not getting alacrity anymore. We are moving that into Druid, but we'll see.
Mhm.
Oh, so their
Get
res
an
potential
extra
is
effect,
probably
an extra
also.
slam. So honestly, a little similar to like if people remember way back in the day
Have
when
they used
spirits
it?
would Nature's
Maybe they've
Vengeance
not
allowed
changed
spirits to
it.
trigger their effect again when they died. It was obviously very problematic, particularly with like nature's.
I love the effects.
The revived spirit.
mean,
What's the name of
I
skills?
guess.
I don't even.
Right,
know
Right, they're showing the
sometimes.
revive.
Yeah,
Ooh.
good times. I just call everything by like completely. Good work here on the stream today, by me. Yeah. So obviously this
Show us
gives
the
you like
revive.
the second ground slam hit, so giving you a bit more value from spirits.
Not one, but two. There you go.
Very cool. One
sums
plus
it up.
1 equals 2.
Hey, we got it. All right.
They're just well.
Yeah, so there are some other nature
okay.
magic updates. I think there's going to be even more on the next slide. And the goal here is to really
The year is
established nature magic
2026,
as a viable
and
support
all
line,
utility
and
skills are
give it the
wells.
tools that it
Yeah.
needs. And obviously there's a little bit of that right now. A lot of the value is tied to alacrity, so we are cleaning up a few of the weaker traits, adding a bit more value. Obviously, like Windborne Notes now is going to heal any ally that you apply regeneration to, not just yourself. And then, Invigorating Bond, now going to trigger off your own healing power, give some boons, make that a much more reliable healing option if you're not looking for the extra spirit trigger. That's the much obvious support Grandmaster trait.
And then there's the
So
Nature's
just-
Vengeance note, which we already talked about. So
Nature's
moving
Vengeance.
It's
on.
gonna be good.
Trapper's Expertise, this is going to be the first of many that we will see in this stream, which is that the trait no longer reduces the cooldown of trap skills, and we've rolled that in baseline for Healing Spring and Spike
not the
Trap.
others.
Spike Trap
What
notably
else
is
does
PvE only
trappers?
for
Oh,
that cooldown
it applies
reduction.
cripple on traps, right?
All right.
Maybe, and
And
gives you
then
might or something like that.
Same thing. Again,
Shout trait.
we're going to be seeing
There
this
we
quite
are.
a bit. So shout trait.
Yeah, we
Roll them in
probably
baseline.
won't need every single note on every single page of all these cooldown reductions, but obviously, you guys can all read in the chat,
Yes,
and they'll be
Grace of the
posted again
Land.
after the stream.
Yeah, exactly. They'll all be on the
Oh,
front.
there
Grace
you
of the
go.
Land.
Yes.
That's a cool.
There you
cool
go.
change.
Here
Grace
it
of the
is,
Land.
Druid Grace of the Land. Yeah, I think maybe I even saw someone mentioning this in Twitch chat right before we started. But Grace of the Land is now going to be the alacrity trait for Ranger, obviously tied in specifically to Druid. So Druid will be the alacrity source on Ranger now that we have removed it from Spirits. And that is just going to straight up grant alacrity instead of might.
Bigger radius for
and
Cosmic
I
Ray. That's nice.
believe that is game wide.
That is game wide,
It's
and we
still
can
a
also
really
see
bad
here that
auto-attack.
rejuvenating tides and natural
Yeah,
but
conversions,
it's
these are getting
good.
some might rolled in baseline. You won't
I
have
think
to
we
take
should
any
have just
trait
made
to get
this
this
ally
might.
target.
And
for
this is kind of a
auto-attack.
nod
I
to
agree.
making
And then
sure
enemy
that
target does
support
damage and
druids
burns.
still have
So you can
I
have
agree.
that damage.
a reasonable amount of might. And obviously, Grace of the Land is going to be contributing alacrity. We don't necessarily want to give too much might for free. This is actually a pretty solid amount coming from both natural convergence and rejuvenating tides, but a bit of might.
It does
baseline
sound like
is
they're
just gonna be
basically
available
making it so that
all-
might is an afterthought
basically all druid builds now.
in group composition because everybody's gonna be giving some might.
It always has been.
Couple other
Yeah.
trait changes too. Later might going to be a pretty interesting one that I think should be exciting for some people.
What?
Which is now the trait is no longer
What's
gonna grant
that?
increased healing after exiting Celestial Avatar. It will instead reduce the recharge of Celestial Avatar every time another player is healed by a Celestial Avatar skill.
Okay.
Meaning that
I
while
actually
you're in
kinda like
Celestial
this.
Avatar, when you're healing,
You actually
have to use
skills
that will
more
actually
than-
reduce the
Yeah,
cooldown of
rather than
being
just
able to go
you're
back
mega
to
strong
Celestial
all the
Avatar.
time.
The
Just an
two,
important thing to note here is
skills
that
you
this
use
is
in
going
range to get the boosty heals. I
cooldown
guess.
reduction will be different between game modes. Obviously, we don't want it to completely blow out in world versus world and basically be a 0-second cooldown every time. So the stacks that it applies, it'll apply stacks for every ally you heal, are going to reduce the cooldown by a different amount.
Okay.
Yeah, and notably, like this is a cooldown reduction trait, which we're trying to remove from a lot of other areas of the game. This is a case where it kind of makes sense because we really want to
Well, because
lot
it's a
of
mechanic.
give
it's
more
it's a
Celestial
druid
Avatar
mechanic
access.
specific cooldown trait. It's not a skill cooldown trait.
Bruiser druids
Yeah.
or side node druids, or now DPS druids, now that they're going to be a pretty real thing. We don't necessarily want those builds to have a lower CA cooldown, so tying it to a support trait and making it so
Okay.
that if you are trying to heal allies, as long as you are healing allies, you will have more access to these skills. It's pretty different from just you take this trait, you have cooldown reduction because you have the skill type thing.
Yeah.
But this is potentially, really interesting in competitive modes as well because
Yeah, that's
you
gonna
obviously have
be
the
some
choice for alacrity,
tanky
but you might not necessarily need it.
rangers probably in.
But then if you're taking the alacrity trait anyways, it's like you're already getting reduction of your abilities.
The rest of these changes on this slide are the
Yay!
introduction of DPS druid.
And also,
I don't know if I like the DPS route.
Show it off in game.
We'll find out.
It's like a
And
lot of
so
dazing.
The goal here is to just, as we said, establish another playstyle for druid, which is currently entirely.
Okay, so it just
general
gives
support
conditions
druid,
to all
and there's,
the
like,
Celestial
also
Avatar
fringe
skills.
druid
Not
stuff
really
in
damaging
PvP right now
conditions.
for, that's effective in certain tiers of.
It will be
range,
very
but,
annoying though.
The big
Yeah,
changes
like,
here are
I'm
definitely
dying because I'm getting stun locked all the time.
Oh my god, more immobilized.
That we already kind of didn't like. It was a kind of an unhealthy mechanic.
Oh,
where
true. This is
it
less
just
bad immobilized than it was
creates, Really
before.
frustrating gameplay, and so it felt like the natural place to introduce Eclipse as the new Grandmaster trait that really.
Oh, poor
solidifies
all
DPS
pew pew
druid as a
rangers
And as we can see here, it
with entangle.
causes all of your CA skills to have a Condi component. The notable ones for DPS are going to be damage. We're going to have poison on skill 2 and burning on
That's
skill
interesting.
5. And the other two traits we have with Blood Moon
So
and
this is going to be
Natural
like
Balance, these are just
immobilized
additional
forever
sources of
conditions.
damage that will hopefully
Even
allow
worse.
both
Cool.
Kandi Alak Druid and just
Avoid
straight
it.
Kandi Druid.
The trait that was there
The
before
flip side is gonna be a
was
good chunk of
5
damage,
seconds
but you
base
will still be able to
entangle.
take these 2 damaging
immobilized
traits
before,
and grace the
right?
land
Fair.
and hopefully be able
I'm
to,
a little upset.
you know,
It feels very
be pretty
PvP
close
minded.
to
I don't think anyone's
Yeah,
gonna
that's
take
not
this
a.
in
That doesn't look
PvE.
like it's gonna really do any PvE damage.
Indeed.
Like, nor even in PvP. It's gonna be like more utility based than damage
always
build
good,
for
though.
Druid. Utility is
not
great.
quite. Here,
Yeah.
one more Druid note.
Right, moving on
Glyph
from
alignment
two
getting a
Druid
little bit
and
of a buff to
Oh,
again,
there's our
another
PvE
tool
damage.
for PvE.
Another 2 seconds of bleeding.
Okay.
Got a couple notes for Soulbeast here. One's just very much a QOL usability improvement to Spiritual Reprieve. This is the healing beast skill. If you have a supportive pet, you will have access to this. Just reducing the cast time, reducing the cooldown, making it a little bit more available. And then the larger change here is to Instinctive Engage. This is Dagger 3. Really want to make sure that Dagger is a viable DPS weapon, a Kandi specifically DPS weapon. So we obviously have Kandi on the auto attack, Kandi on the 2 skill, but the 3 skill only gives quickness right now. Now it is also going to apply notably poison and a little bit of slow, just a little bit of slow to, you know, make sure it is. Really, the poison is the important part, making sure that you have another viable DPS skill to press. And it's not going to be an ammo skill anymore because we feel that the power level is going to be
For
good
Kandi
enough with
Ranger,
these changes that it
what's your
only
current
needs to have
DPS
one.
weapons? It's short bow and axe.
All right, as
And
we
torch, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's offhand. I'm talking about
Or dagger. Dagger, dagger
Loose is going
torch.
to be a new trait. We reworked,
Soulbeast, maybe.
nerf
Not many people
force
probably take it.
previously. So now we're going to be reworking it to let loose, which will now
Let loose.
boons to nearby allies when you use an unleashed ambush skill, which will also recharge your unleashed ambush when you swap weapons. Notably, I do believe this is going to be different boons in different modes.
Yes, it will be quickness in
That'll be
PvE
interesting.
and not quickness in competitive modes. And yeah,
That's
just
interesting.
a little extra note here. Obviously, Fervent Force has kind of been a historically problematic trait. We've seen like the power level of Fervent Force when it was a 4-second cooldown reduction, and really the gameplay that it enabled
I like that.
is, you know, it's
What are the
really
boons
press
you
a lot
give?
of buttons
It
as
says
quickly as you
grant
possibly
boons.
can.
They said in
And it
PvE
is
quickness,
it ended
in
up being a bit too rewarding, so we
Competitives,
nerfed
probably like
Fervent Force,
might
and it
or
just kind of
something. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is
the
this
world
a
completely.
quickness? Is this
Yeah.
And
That was the
100%
first
realistically,
slide.
Fervent Force
Yeah.
probably just
Wow.
problematic.
Probably,
too
because they said they're
difficult
putting
of a mechanic
Alacrity on Druid
Well, there
quickness
you go.
on
to
Untamed.
have
There you
both
go.
in a balanced state and a state that feels good. So while we're looking
Because
to
they took away
introduce
quickness
like
on
it.
Scraper.
quickness Untamed,
I like it.
this felt like the natural place again to introduce the Let Loose, and it gets a little bit more of that fun, like very bursty potential gameplay because it does refresh Unleashed Ambush, so you can ambush, swap weapons, ambush again, potentially create some interesting burst potential. Not quite the same as Fervent Force, but trying to maintain a little bit of that identity while also introducing the quickness support trait.
Interesting. Okay.
Absolutely. A couple other notes here, but again.
So if they've
most
taken care of
foremost,
Ranger this
we
way,
need to read through everything,
do you
so
think
just
they're gonna
buffs
do
there.
the same in this
Same thing,
patch
just
for
so
Warrior?
Power coefficient.
You're
so.
going toward Warrior all the time. It's like, I'm like you.
Well, because it's the same. It
Loving
had
that
the same
Warrior.
problem as
It's
Ranger.
the
just
one.
gonna say,
It's the one
like,
other profession that would need this
With
treatment.
the absence of
I hope
Fervent
so.
Force, we've kind of established a
Fair
better
play.
baseline of
You can give you
where
quickness
Untamed DPS actually is, assuming you take
to,
like Ferocious
like-
Symbiosis.
Like, what
and
would it
it's
give
obviously
Alacrity
not
to
up par.
for
So a lot
Warrior?
of
Which
these
would you
changes are
Maybe
expect?
Spellbreaker.
the potential damage for
But like, there's no
Untamed
real
builds.
thematic
The
tie-in
first
to
item
any
was
of their
like-
elite
Maybe
specs
they
now.
bring
Isn't-
in one elite spec for Warrior that's fully supported.
Honestly,
buff to
like a
Untamed
monk,
damage, hoping
martial
that that
artist,
is a
like,
viable DPS build in addition to being
I
a-
can see that.
Maybe they'd
the
rework
future.
some of the. I think they're going to rework some of the elite specializations that are a little bit like.
Okay, this is what I'm interested in.
So, Thief.
Quickness.
Taking a look at Acrobatics.
Yeah.
Straight line
Thief
that
could
we
be pretty big
haven't
this
seen.
patch,
I mean, the
y'all.
Spectre ones. Yeah, I'd like that.
Some reworks.
The Alacrity
We've got some
rework,
improvements
huh? I wanna
in
see what happens here.
And Acrobatics
Daredevil.
updates the worst trait line in the game.
Deadeye is now going to be
True.
providing quickness on Thief. We're going to be doing
Is-
a little bit
is
of
Acrobatics
Well,
Correct.
least
Worst?
least used.
Maybe.
It's the least used
And
trait
Isn't
line
there
in
a
the game.
Warrior
Not necessarily the
one?
worst.
Isn't there a Warrior trait line that's pretty bad as well?
Oh, yeah,
Support capabilities.
Is it tech?
Yeah.
not tactics?
That was,
what's it
definitely part of the
called?
teaser. But we're gonna kick things
Discipline?
off with Acrobatics.
No.
No, but discipline's good because it's
So-
profession mechanic.
Yeah.
The big change here
That's the
is
ferocity
change
one.
to endless stamina.
Oh.
And just to give some
Arms?
background, some
Arms.
context.
Arms.
The direction we're going with Acro is kind of similar to what we did with Shadow Arts, where previously Shadow Arts was kind of a problematic trait line in how it really rewarded you for camping and stealth and extending stealth durations and creating too much stealth. And when we reworked it, we made it more about rewarding stealth. So you no longer got the stealth extension, but you got some really powerful effects on entering and exiting, and really promoting that gameplay style. Similar to Acrobatics, we've seen, historically when Acrobatics has been a viable trait line in the past with the Super Vigor trait, and way back when Feline Grace gave you flat endurance, we saw some crazy stuff with just Acrobatics gave you way too many dodges, and it was very hard to interact with, very hard to kill in Acro Thief. So as part of our kind of look at Acro and our Acro rework, we want to focus more on rewarding dodges more so than giving a bunch of dodges. And Feline Grace will still grant Vigor, but Endless Stamina is no longer going to be that Super Vigor trait. And we really wanted to add another damage trait to the Grandmaster Minor. This is something that did exist previously, Fluid Strikes. This is the old name. It's a different behavior, but it is now, once again, a damage add in the Grandmaster Minor. Pretty normal for Thief, really, in every trait line. And something that is really maybe not a requirement, but a very strong incentive to use a trait line. So with Acro now having that, and we'll still have Swindler's Equilibrium giving it more damage to sword builds as well, it makes it just a much more attractive trait line. And with
Sword's a funky weapon.
We're hoping to see some Acrobatics Thief. Probably with
I like it.
builds,
I like it for my Spectre.
We'll really see
Teleport.
the damage bonus
Shadow
here
step
is quite
heal.
good. What?
I said SD stocks going up a little bit.
Yeah, stocks up, of course.
Indeed.
A couple other notes there were just to reworking some of the more passive traits still. Pain Response obviously just cleanses conditions at your health threshold. Now it's going to be a bit more active. It will only cleanse one damaging condition, but it will happen every time you dodge roll. And then Guardian Initiation, pretty exciting one here. We're going to be giving resistance on movement skill. So that replaces a trait that would cleanse stuff like some non-damaging conditions when you struck an enemy. Not really exciting, not really interesting. Now it is both exciting and interesting, I would argue.
Big for PvP.
Can't say no to getting excited about.
Oh no,
resistance,
yeah, it's really good.
All right, just a couple other
Pretty
changes
strong,
here. Improvisation going to be a kind of important one. Also potentially tie in a little bit to some changes later on. But this is going to be
there you go. Utility skill cooldown reduction.
Utility skills by percentage when you steal instead of a random skill. Or alive right now, if when you steal, it randomly recharges a random skill. And so this is just to kind of reduce the RNG a little bit, make it a little bit more consistent, and again, like I mentioned, kind of tie in a bit with some other changes we'll be doing or showing in just a moment.
We like to play around with some of this, yeah.
Yeah, and just some other minor updates to Acrobatics traits, tuning them up a little bit. Swindler's Equilibrium, we are going back to the old functionality of the 1 second recharge every 1 second, rather than having the large chunk on a single trigger with a long cooldown. And this felt like it's just a bit more.
It's just more sustaining.
Identifies a bit more
consistent,
with the Acrobatics line, where you are going to be focused on those maybe a little bit longer encounters, dodging, just that fluid gameplay. You'll be dodging a lot more frequently, so rewarding like each time you dodge is a bit more acrobatics than giving you a single reward one time every longer interval.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Daredevil.
Yeah, Daredevil.
So
as we mentioned, we're going to be looking at buffing it a little bit in PvE. So we've just got some straight up staff DPS coefficient increases there for PvE.
It's a big damage.
And then we're
exactly double.
It's pretty strong.
So PvE, Daredevil, it's very strong in some bosses, not so strong on others. Just kind of really based on a lot of the stolen skills that you can get. So we're kind of trying to just kind of close the gap between some of them. So we're
so they've removed
up here. So as you can see, Detonate Plasma now deals damage and no longer grants
just the quickness.
Again, we are going to be putting
quickness is kind of good though.
You couldn't share that to allies. That was just personal, right?
You're right. You're right.
You need to get rid of that.
Yep. As Roy said, we're really just trying to normalize a lot of the value here, so that regardless of what stolen bundle you get, you'll be dealing about the same amount of damage, because we are also increasing, the staff damage increases. We just want to make sure that Daredevil feels good on every encounter, not really reliant on RNG or in specific encounters to actually play DPS Daredevil.
Exactly. All right. And then here again, we see just cooldown taken out of Brawler's Tenacity.
So then they reduce all the cooldowns.
And almost all of the physical skills getting that cooldown baked in baseline. A couple changes between some game modes, but you can see them there.
Good stuff.
Indeed.
All right, Deadeye.
Here we go. This is the
big one.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right, if you want to talk about it, I can show it in game.
Sure. Yeah. So the big change here is that we are trying to introduce Quickness Deadeye,
Cool.
and a big part of that is stolen skills will now grant their beneficial effects AOE. This is notable
Baseline.
for Steal Time, because
That's
Steal Time gives quickness. Now it gives AOE quickness.
Yeah.
The other piece of that is the change to Fire for Effect, which is the trait that currently gives you some might, gives you some fury. It will still do that, but it will now also cause you to always steal time. Change,
Oh.
regardless of enemy's profession or creature
Oh.
type, you will always get steal time, which means you can now consistently grant AOE
It
quickness
really
to yourself
pigeonholes
and
you into
nearby
that, though.
allies.
Yeah, it does. That's weird.
The
What a weird way
expectation
to
here,
implement
we've kind
it.
of,
Wait, so that's
theorecrafted the
in
build a little bit
PvP as
internally
well, then?
Yeah, I guess.
Are,
Yeah.
I
I
AOE
thought they were going to
quickness?
change
Quicker be
this
quick
because it gives you
killed.
the extra stolen
That's what I
bundle.
thought,
Obviously, it does
too.
take away a bit from the
What a
damage.
weird way to
but it will
implement
give
that.
I
That's
thought,
odd.
I thought they weren't
That's
having
odd.
AoE
balance the
quickness
numbers a
and
bit, so obviously we want
They're
Quickness
like
Deadeye to be a
anymore.
dropping it down to like
similar
1 or
DPS
2
value to the quickness
seconds, so
build.
like
One in
some
the
still
chamber,
can,
obviously,
but
is
it's
a
very
relevant trait
minor.
here, 'cause it will
And I guess
give
people
you
weren't
stolen
like
bundle,
Deadeye,
but at
you're
the same
usually
time, you
pretty
don't want this to
sedentary.
become a build where you
I
just
suppose,
They got
yeah,
shadow
you know.
steps. I don't know.
cooldown in order to maintain quickness.
So why even
That's getting
have
that we're
it?
trying to get away from, so we don't want to introduce that while we're fixing all these other cases.
Just because in
We're
raids,
expecting you'll probably
maybe?
play this trait.
And
You might
like
take a
strikes,
cantrip or
maybe?
two to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Of
It's
The
like two
radius needs to be
areas.
bigger in
a little bit less
PvE,
boon
though.
duration, or you want quickness access at very specific times, then cantrips will be able to give you more steal time.
Is it
bundles,
around you
but
and the
there
target?
is there's no expectation.
I don't know.
Four
They
or
need to show
five
it again.
cantrips and just press
No.
F
Because
to
that's
get
how the
quick
old trait was,
to your
and it really allowed Deadeye to play at
Joy
various
is
range and still
probably
provide that
game.
boon.
How you
That would
always
actually be,
steal
if that's
time.
not it, then that would be good.
Stealing time.
Still weird. No.
All right,
We
then
have
a
couple
couple
of
other
other
but
improvements to some cantrips.
I'd like to see the radii
Yeah,
increased.
resistance duration higher, sure.
Mm-mm.
And then some cantrip improvements. Again, we're not expecting you to play all of these cantrips, but there are definitely some gameplay improvements that we felt could be made here, especially with like Shadow Flare, making it a bit more reliable, a little bit less
Oh,
non-synergistic with stealth. It'll just do a single hit now, as opposed to pulsing and really disrupting any.
I like how we're all listening talking like Crichton Herald's screen is just like not like every so often, just like left to right bobs of the head and the T just flaming in the background and smiles.
well, a couple things.
Yeah.
I was interested in the Druid one. I've got my falling off now.
That's fair enough.
Ally target scepter skills now grant lesser effect to allies in radius.
Wait, what?
Does that include the quickness?
I hope not. I think they should change that quickness to alacrity. Just keep everything streamlined.
Spectre, very, very potent at supporting a single ally.
I don't think
right
it
now.
needs to be on the
That's
auto
great,
attack.
But we still want to
Like the
make it
second and the
viable
third
in
abilities,
modes, you know,
sure, be
where you
AoE,
have
but I kind of like when it's
players,
just.
but, you know,
But
looking a lot at World
I
of
digress. I like that it is a lesser effect on
content,
allies. It makes
showcasing
sense.
PvP as well. And so also probably important to note here is that the lesser effect is going to be different between game modes. So in some game modes it might be a little bit higher, some game modes it might be a little bit lower. But yes, your ally target deceptor skills now will be granting their bonuses to allies around them, around your target.
Yeah, and it's at a lesser effect
okay.
because we
That's
still
cool.
wanted to maintain a little bit of
Oh,
that
my
single
build's
target
broken.
identity. That's like a lot of what Spectre is
Oh, Shade
trying
Step.
to do. You know,
They just, they broke, my build's gone.
protect
Great.
the cage situations. We still want that to feel like those
I kinda like this
they're
trait,
possible in
though.
Spectre.
Bye build.
So doing just a little bit
That's
of
a shame.
splash of the effect around the target as opposed
Yeah, but
to
it means you get to make a
full
new one,
value
darling.
is
Yeah, I guess
that's the whole
so.
our
point.
attempt to really maintain that identity.
Yeah.
Obviously, Shade Step is going to just kind of apply to
I always
everyone.
feel like
There's a full rework. We felt this
Shadow Round should have been
maybe it
AoE
wasn't the most
baseline
reliable,
around,
a little
because
bit
like
clunky gameplay-wise,
make that the
and
empowered
looking to,
version
introduce
of your
alacrity
support.
on something else for Spectre and really solidify that support build. We decided that reworking Shade Step was probably the thing that made the most sense. So it's now going to essentially make your Shadow Shroud skills AoE because they're going to apply to allies around the tethered target. And the boon here is different per game mode. It's going to be alacrity in PvE, but then protection as a different
Pretty
way
cool in
to
PvP
support
because
your
you don't
allies
have to be
competitive
in the fight specifically to do that as
And,
well. So you can be
rounding out the
less-
changes, a few reworks to traits. Obviously,
Kinda cool.
Will trait
Yeah.
won't give alacrity anymore, and Shallow Grave a little bit more condition removal. Really, nothing too crazy. Let's see how many times I can say nothing too crazy in this stream. Because I know that was a
What about the
back
well
during the
trait?
End of Dragons
Is
preview.
it?
Indeed. So here just showing off the new Grandmaster there. This is notably protection in PvP.
Oh, so it's actually so I don't have to do the protection stuff anymore.
So
it's just literally protection from Shade Step now. Okay.
In PvP,
targets to
in
show this off on,
PvE, it's
I would.
alacrity.
Unfortunately, I don't.
Oh, what?
And, so we will-
Yeah.
You already. Oh boy.
What happened to those?
That's how they
I
removed
literally
the
spawned some gold,
cast
so-
demand of
Yeah,
wells. It's now integrated
I
into the shroud.
mean-
But I feel like just make that baseline.
So we've been.
That's. I don't know, man.
Good times.
But it will essentially work as you might expect when you use shroud skills.
They were gonna
or
show us,
scepter
but they
skills.
failed.
It will grant
Oh,
the boost
Traversing Dusk
around
no
your target.
longer grants
In the case of
alacrity.
shroud skills, it'll grant your allies protection if you're in PvP.
Oh.
There we go.
Yeah.
Wait,
There
what?
are always changes in
I
these where
think-
it's like
I
some
don't
of
know
them are
if you can
good, but then
play
others I'm like,
Trig.
do they need to go that far?
It's you. So now it's you give alacrity while you're in shroud. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
Okay.
Very druid.
I guess I can blame Roy for not understanding how to.
Thinks that copy pasta druid, but the Shadow Shroud just feels worse with all of its abilities. I hope that they do adjust some of the Shadow Shroud abilities.
So a couple things here for engineer.
I really enjoyed that build. I'm very sad actually. I'm very sad.
I'm not sad.
It wasn't a very good build, but I really enjoyed it.
Right,
So
Scrapper quickness
And then
rework.
we got a
You're starting to key it in.
that we're going to be looking at among several other changes.
Yeah, but,
Yeah,
but in
similar stuff.
Shroud is better
Moving
than
it
the
off of
Wells
Wells,
because someone
moving
said
off
in
of
chat, Well
gyros.
spam is boring.
Yeah.
This is true.
Bring up those
I still think they
like
could have
that.
alacrity. They could have
yeah,
alacrity
no
on
more
the
well
healing
spam,
well.
but no more fun either.
Couple that I'll just
Oh.
note here. So Med Blaster, this is going to be Medkit 1, is going to
Sorry, I'm
receive
gonna
a
be
nerf.
zeroed in on
Range is
engineer.
going down a little bit, and
Yeah.
the number of boons that this scales off has been limited to 4 in World vs. World and PvP. However, Fumigate is going to have its cooldown reduced in World vs. World. And Super Elixir is going to now be sort of more normalized with the PvE values. It's going to not pulse for quite as long, so that you don't sort of have to stay in that AoE to try to get the full value from it. And because of this, we've increased the ticks and the healing on it, just to make sure you're still getting that value while you're in it. It's a little bit, these changes are kind of aimed at trying to bump up support Scrapper a little bit in World vs. World. Notably, I guess I should also mention Super Elixir is going to be unblockable. And so, you know, we nerfed support Scrapper back in October pretty heavily. It was a build that was running pretty rampant in World vs. World Support Scrapper for quite a while. And we have seen it still somewhat around a little bit kind of on the fringe, but we want to try and bump it up a little bit just to try to compete with some of the other supports that we've seen getting a lot more value in World vs. World recently.
It's because of the
Right.
boss, not because of the
Toolkit
elixir gun.
I believe you're muted, Cal. I don't know
So
if you'd
Nice
like to
to
stay
not
that way
just
for the
have
rest
to
of
play
the stream.
Thank you.
Firebrand, to be
We can
honest.
start with either legs.
Oh, Firebrand.
Probably make things easier for me. Sit here and let you do everything.
Literally playing it
It's
right
basically
now.
what we do right now. You're running the whole stream. Anyway, Power Wrench not going to reduce the cooldown of toolkit skills anymore. This trait would definitely be one of the weaker ones especially in competitive modes, as the recharge
No
reduction
one
was
uses it
1 second a
other
long time
than
ago.
it's just
So
the
bringing
elite.
that back up to the 3-second elite skill recharge potentially makes it a bit more interesting. Still has to compete with some,
What?
static discharge.
I do like
tough
these
ones,
changes
but
because they
especially
make
opens
the
door
tool tips and
some
traits
interesting
in
stuff
general
with that
much
elite
more
skill
concise
recharge reduction.
and easy to
Just
understand.
PvE only cooldown reductions for some of the specific skills.
I just
there.
don't know why.
And then we got a CDR trait.
Gadget trait. Nice.
Indeed. Gadgeteer, excuse me, no longer reduces the cooldown of gadget skills. We've got those gadgets, or some of those gadgets.
Oh, good,
not
that's
all of them,
good.
Of course. Getting that cooldown in baseline.
Hey.
PvE
There's
is
more
gonna
gadgets
be
on the next
switches
slide.
Oh,
only.
Rocket Boost is just always
More gadgets
16
on the next
seconds.
slide. There are more
That's
gadgets on the
nice.
next slide.
And we start the list of elixirs. There
Yes.
are many of them.
So hold
Oh.
fast for a couple slides here. We've got some elixirs to look at. Yes, HGH is no longer reducing the cooldown of elixir skills. You now have that cooldown
So good.
baseline on the elixirs, just so you're not forced to maybe take the elixir trade all the time. Go into alchemy for that. And something else that's going to be quite nice. We'll look at that in just a second, but here you can see all the
few slides to get through here.
one or two for the
Oh,
elixirs.
wow.
Again,
There's a
these will
lot of
all
them.
be on the forums, so if you miss them, for it doesn't wait long enough on each slide, you can always go back and watch the VOD.
Oh my.
Or you can just completely go
Well,
off the rails
there's
here.
one
and
for
all
each
the
elixir,
lessers.
and
Start
then
over.
there's free, and then there's the free.
Notes will
Yeah,
all be
because it's
posted
the
on
lessers
the
are all built
forums
into the
after
traits,
the stream
right?
is
So
over.
there's lesser.
But yeah, so we've gotten through all the
traits.
elixirs.
Important note here at the end.
is that tossed elixirs that do not affect enemies are now unblockable. And so this is obviously, again, kind of a little bit of a nod to that support scrapper in World vs. World, but in PvP as well in some cases, where there's just too much projectile hate to really ever get value out of those tossed elixirs.
Me playing an Elementalist the other day in World vs. World.
That affect enemies.
Couldn't hit anything.
And, try to, especially now with the cooldowns coming in baseline with some of these elixirs, we want to see if, potentially some of these elixir skills are going to be good on Scrapper in a support sort of style, where before maybe you just weren't getting enough value because your tossed elixir just kept getting blocked. So that is going to be baseline unblockable.
That's very good, especially with the res one.
Skill.
I'd like to do that.
Yeah, indeed. And now you can play it.
Right.
Yeah, and then there you go. Cooldowns.
I got some
scrapper
scrapper changes on the next slide, I believe.
Indeed. All right, so this is going to be almost kind of counterintuitive to all the things I just said about support scrapper, because this is in fact a bit of a nerf to support scrapper. But we are going to be lowering the super speed application from speed of synergy in World vs. World only. This is not really meant to try to prevent Scrapper from being able to apply super speed or to again just nerf it while we're trying to potentially bump it up a little bit. But just because again, if even now, while it is still kind of prevalent in World vs. World.
Something they didn't used to do as much was focus on specific builds, and now they're focused more on builds through their balance patches as well. Like it feels like this is like they say this is very like world scrapper based, and like I guess elixirs everything, but I don't know. At least with engineer, I don't know if it's the same with everything.
It really has felt mostly just with NG.
Some good news for Scrapper enjoyers.
In the past as well, for sure, yeah.
Which is now going to
in the latest patches, yeah.
Yeah. Most other classes are just like, here are the general changes, but whenever they're talking about NG, they're like, specifically, like, this build.
Yeah.
Nice sort of,
I don't know, they did
which is limiting.
And I don't
in a way.
NG is like weird though, because there's so many useless utilities as well.
PvP and Item Fury in competitive modes, basically the boons that are already on Kinetic Accelerator are going to be the same. The durations might be adjusted a little bit, but the trigger condition is what changes here. And again, this is going to really open the door
this
for a
change.
lot of different utility skill choices.
Integrating into combo finishers. Whenever you blast or leap in a finisher, you'll grant the boons.
I personally love
and then you can
traits that let you do stuff when you do combo finishers.
Yeah.
I love it. For some reason, about a year or two ago, they removed them all from the game because they didn't want to. They wanted to make the game less complicated for people. But they're bringing them back, I guess. Maybe I don't know.
Rest in peace, warrior. What was it like? Bounding. You like double blasted or something.
Right now, if you're out of range of it. It has
I'm just checking to see what it is right now. I remember.
We still want you to have to play around keeping your mech within range, but we felt the the stat penalty was maybe a little bit too punishing.
Oh.
So no longer going to have that stat penalty on the mech. Instead, now it'll just increase the cooldown of command skills if the mech is, or if you use those command skills while the mech is farther than 360 units away from the engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is both a little bit more visible. It's just a lot easier to understand when you press your button while your mech is out of range, and it has a higher cooldown as opposed to this pseudo invisible like stat penalty to the mech. We feel like it's just going to be a lot better, a lot easier to understand with this penalty. And we still, as Roy said, we still want to have some sort of penalty to not staying too close to your mech, but we're hoping that this iteration feels a bit better than the current one. And we have a couple other changes to Mechanist with maybe some barrier reductions on barrier engine, a bit too easy of a source. So we see the barrier coming down there, but then barrier burst getting a bit more barrier on it to compensate.
Makes sense.
Indeed. All right, 1/3 of the way through. So we've got Guard now to talk about.
Well, I'll check out.
And
that's
so,
all we get.
Honestly, a chunk of these notes are going to be utility skill cooldown reduction traits being removed.
The streams are very long.
I wonder what they're going to do with the consecration trait.
So it is going to be a lot of notes, not necessarily a lot of different sort of mechanical changes there, but this will affect a large variety of Guardian builds. And then on top of that, we've also got some improvements for Firebrand in PvP.
Yeah, I believe there's 7 utility skill traits getting adjusted here.
Okay.
But they're potentially, create a lot of interesting options because especially the meditation trait and the Shout trait are two of these, fairly iconic traits that Guardian builds have been more reliant on historically.
Oh, yeah.
Play stuff like
support.
Stand Your Ground is very much balanced around having Pure Voice right now, so you do get penalized a little bit if you do not have Pure Voice, but now you might have a little bit more freedom to take something like Force of Will and the meditation trait. All of the meditations are going to get their cooldown reduced.
Yeah, that's actually really
much
cool.
More flexibility in what trait lines you can play while you're playing meditation.
That's the good thing. Like taking these cooldowns out is going to give you so much more choice. Although they are normally balanced, just even in that line, right? You're not going to take these reduced cooldown or weapon cooldown things. You're actually going to have more choice, or they improve and change the trait into something decent.
Not too long for
fun.
Skill, pretty normal. So having
this is actually really good.
On that, probably a bit
I like that they've really done all of this as well.
That healing skill
in this one patch. It looks like they've attacked a lot of this stuff.
Healing skill for Guardian builds.
Kind of a lot.
Goddamn,
of work.
I'll take it. Goddamn.
Are you talking about the patch, or are you talking about Wild Rework?
I'm talking about the changes to. I am listening. I promise.
Oh, okay. I was like, I wasn't sure. I was like, take it.
Guardian
take that sword.
In case you're still trying to take this trait after the cooldown.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot. That's a lot of work.
But as Cal mentioned, I mean, this is obviously going to be fairly relevant for a couple of builds in PvP specifically, where you already take several meditations. All of them, except for I believe Renewed Focus, are getting.
I'm looking forward to playing support Guardian maybe again.
Difference there for Litany Wrath, the heal, but the rest of them, this again. Kind of, not to beat a dead horse, it is going to definitely be pretty relevant for a lot of Guardian builds.
You still get focused down in World v World, so don't
already. And so now
shit your tatas too much.
Build craft, you don't have to go into Valor, or you don't have to take Monk's Focus on that trait line. And then similar deal as Cal mentioned before, we've got Pure Voice. Now maybe you're going to be running Force of Will.
Receive the light.
And receive the light, advance, and hold the line. We're getting those cooldowns reduced. And I believe we've got, the other shouts there.
You believe they should be? Fucking hell. It's not important, isn't it?
Okay. But yeah, there we go. Yeah, more cooldown reductions, indeed.
Feel my wrath?
Yet again, another
consecrations.
Who would have thunk it? Guardian
Master of Consecrations.
This is boring.
Yep.
Concentration.
What? Consecrations are great.
Absolutely.
I know the trait. Now the trait is just they last 2 seconds longer.
So the traps are getting
that's boring.
I wish it was like.
They didn't even change.
Getting their cooldown.
They just removed the thing. They haven't changed the traits yet. That's weird.
I don't know. I think this.
I
might
think
be
they
the
should
end of
just like. I would have loved it if allies who stand in the consecration get barrier, because it's a very defensive ward. Like honestly, they're basically just wards.
I think they want to give them access to that, right? Have they got access to barrier?
Yeah, on Hammer, but they don't have any way to apply it AOE.
I like that.
However, if you still take this trait, currently what will happen if you use that final charge is you'll get page back.
Barrier and boons might be a lot. I don't know.
The resource pages in November. Now
it's Mechanist
2 pages
called.
Instead of 1, so there's still definitely a pretty powerful
Yeah,
trait,
but like
that you can
they don't have as much like raw healing as Guardian,
the Cleanse mantra there for PvP is going to be getting some changes. Right now, it's not really very strong at 1 cleanse per charge, and kind of all of the cleanse is baked into that third and final charge where it cleanses 5. We wanted to be able to allow players to play around, the other
Dragon's
two charges a little
Maw.
bit more, maybe potentially.
Dragon Hunter.
Players to take this skill. And so now,
so weighty terms.
2 conditions.
Increases page band by 2 when you use the last charge. Okay.
2 cleanses on a 12-second cooldown seems a little bit strong. If it still isn't quite good enough, we are considering looking at reducing that cooldown back. Maybe not quite to 12 seconds, but potentially somewhere in between. And then in sort of reaction to that, the final charge, the third charge, is going to be lowered a little bit from 5 to 3 conditions cleansed. And these are PvP.
Yeah.
Huh.
So obviously this is like the only true Firebrand note.
Book 2?
Honestly, it should be pretty relevant having that more reliable.
I'm forgetting my spells.
Too high, as Rory
There's
said.
so many names of things I never remember.
That,
I think they're talking
one
about
of the most potent,
the mantra?
support Firebrand skills that is specific to Firebrand, having that access to.
Yeah.
That's
do
the
you think
final
that,
charge.
Like, the
yeah,
change
yeah.
to Pure Voice is going to give a lot more
charge
flexibility
on
to
the
Firebrand?
It's only been a couple months since we've had 3 charges back.
More freely
Yeah,
play with Force of Will, which will
nerfing / not nerfing.
little
they
bit
are
more
nerfing.
tankiness
They're
should
just
help and not
balancing it
increase
to be a
Yeah.
bit more of a
Yeah.
less like a
to be,
boom 5
honestly, a
removed.
non-trivial
Exactly.
Okay.
So you don't just spam
builds,
through it to get removed.
It
They're
still might not get
all
here.
of them
I think
conditions,
Firebrand
yeah.
is the new Shatterstone. Now that Shatterstone is a real.
It gives it
skill,
more
you can't buff it
consistency.
every
That's
patch
what they
anymore.
did with Ranger
We're now
and
going to buff
Engineer.
support
They're giving it
Firebrand
more
every patch.
sustained. Well, and Thief actually.
For us
So
to
that's the
land
theme
on
that
board,
is going across all of the classes right now. They're giving them more sustained over time like ability
kinda
rather
here.
than just like bursty stuff.
So we'll see. Shatterstone took some time, but yeah.
We're still iterating.
Are they?
We
They're
do
saying
want
that
support
Firebrand's the
Firebrand
new
to be rebuilt with
Shatterstone, that they
PvP,
don't know what to
and
do with it.
I feel
That's
like
so
it's definitely getting
unfortunate.
closer with the changes that have happened over the last few updates. To see
Rest
how-
in peace,
how these
Firebrand.
changes really impact it, and we'll probably end up buffing it again in the future.
I think they should
Oh
just
my
delete
God.
it and give them something else.
Rework Firebrand,
Just
honestly.
do it. Just
I love
rework
the
that.
idea of tomes though, but like don't maybe just change the way they did it.
Herald is going to be getting a bit of a rework. And we are going to be adjusting Vindicator for War
Delete it.
World.
Just restart. Maneuvering.
So
Are
a
we
little
fine
bit of
with
a nod to a couple of different things, mostly competitive stuff here, which is going to be the Banish enchantment is now getting a 5-second cooldown in World versus World. This is mostly due to sort of two things. One, which is
Yeah, the
when
7
you
people
go
that
into
still play
Malix,
PvP, yeah,
especially the
probably.
Mechanists, you can
Sorry.
very easily spam Banish enchantment 3
Salty.
times in a row, which rips a large number of boons from targets very, very quickly. We felt that it was just a little bit too spammable. It also kind of locks players out of using a lot of other skills
forced
in Malix,
engagement's no
and,
longer
so
fun in
potentially this opens up
PvE.
some ability just to kind of rotate throughout the
They
season a
hate
little bit
taunt
more, so
skills.
you can only really use
The
them
4
that
skills
one
in game.
skill.
Mm.
And then some nice changes here, some quality of life changes again, maybe a little bit more specifically for PvP. Obviously, Battle Scars is literally PvP only, which is going to be that base healing increase just to increase some sustain on some DPS builds. But aggressive agility, a pretty interesting change here, kind of similar to one of the
Why did they
changes we
change
saw
that
earlier
from
with Thief,
5 to 1?
which is
do you
that the
think?
trait no longer removes immobilize. This is when you use
'Cause it was an
movement
AoE
abilities
taunt.
on Revenant. Instead, will grant resistance.
Is
so you're
that
not just,
strong?
kind of having an anti-immob trait. You're now having a little bit more
In
ability to
PvP,
potentially
I don't
stop
think
some of
taunt
these
should even be in PvP. Because, I mean, I guess we have fear, but
Yeah, why
And
not?
then rounding out the stuff on
do
this
that.
slide.
it just seems
Demonic
that they
Defiance,
hate, they find
up
it
the power level a
really
bit more.
troublesome to have it
In
in the
addition to granting
game
you resistance,
already.
it will remove
Right.
So,
that
like,
condition.
why not
So
just remove
we've
it from
kinda
the
seen,
competitive sphere and
with
allow
the
it to
change
be a
to
utility in
resistance
PvE?
going
That makes
from
sense.
all conditions to non-damaging conditions, it impacted really the corruption trait
Yeah.
line for Rev and also just Malix stance.
sure did.
Used to be a very powerful against all types of conditions type of trait line and legend, but with the absence of resistance preventing damaging conditions, then damaging conditions are just still very threatening to.
It's weird that it
build
stayed in the game for so long. Those
maybe
things
not
that
super
self-inflict
thematic and,
conditions
a
without
bit
resistance
punishing
being
to what these builds are
actually
trying to
good.
do. So
Mhm.
this change to Demonic Defiance just trying to give a little bit more cleanse to damaging conditions specifically, because resistance is still there to cover all of the non-damaging components.
Yeah.
And then forced engagement. You want to talk about this one, Roy?
Force engagement, pretty easy. Yeah, just the range is going back up. We had reduced this a while back, so it's now going to be going to 900, but the number of targets is going to be 5 to 1, so it'll just be a single target ability now. Pretty straightforward there.
Yeah, I mean, we felt that it was a bit too powerful, and we did want to bump the
PvE.
range back up because it has a lot more application when you can CC a target from 300 range is not huge, but it is a non-trivial improvement, 600 900. But the 5 target nature was probably just a bit too strong, so we really wanted to focus the skill's identity on kind of where it was originally, a forced engagement on a single target at a longer range.
I agree with that. But in PvE,
Alright,
I
so
just
here
like
is the big
now the cooldown and the cost, the energy,
We're gonna be changing some of the quickness
without a
function on.
change to the actual duration of the
Elemental
taunt.
Passion will now grant boons to nearby allies
Yeah.
while 6 or more points of upkeep are in use, in addition to its current effect. And Draconic Echo no longer grants boons when using Consume skill. Instead, causes passives to grant an additional bonus to the Herald. So I'll show these off in game. real quick. Cal can do
Yeah,
his thing.
so obviously we wanted to move away from the Draconic Echo, press all your skills off cooldown to generate quickness. And moving it on to upkeep was kind of a really interesting idea we had. And the key here is that we don't want it to be the case where we've kind of moved all the way in the other direction where now you just can't press skills. You must just sit there maintaining
Okay.
auto attacking. That's definitely not the goal. And so the duration and the pip requirement has kind of been balanced
The allies when
around
your upkeep
trying to
cost
make
is
sure
equal
that
to or
players are
higher
able
than
to
the
maintain
threshold.
this and still
Of
use
Is the
what?
boon
their
only
skills
vigor?
when they need
In
to,
PvP,
and
in
when they want
PvE,
to,
quickness.
under the
Quickness,
assumption
okay.
that you will be
When
swapping
it should be
legends to recharge
alacrity, but I won't get into that.
your energy, and there will be some
Wait,
amount
don't you get
of
alacrity
button
off
pressing that can exist
thingamajig?
alongside this
Renegade.
upkeep.
Yeah.
I think thematically they should
Because,
just switch.
Just to say it
Switch it.
again.
Yeah,
we
because
definitely
that
don't want
doesn't
this
make
change to be that you
sense,
sit
does
there
it?
channeling
Although
your
they don't want to have
skills
alacrity
Like-
just on
and not doing
support builds,
anything else.
maybe.
And if we didn't quite hit the
So,
mark,
Which
with
It
the
does
complicates
force you
the
to
game.
do your
Yeah,
upkeep
it does.
skills, though. It's still forcing you into something.
Actually works in a way that feels
Yeah, but
good.
But
everything.
I
all
like
of
this
So we wanna
so
fix
much
the
better because
bad
you still
gameplay
get
of
your healing properties.
draconic
It's not
echo,
like
but we don't wanna
Tempest
introduce
where you
additional
either
source
take your
of
healing
bad
trait
gameplay.
or you take your
Yeah,
alacrity
and I guess
trait.
you could still
So
be
that's
giving
something we'll be
quickness
keeping
without
right
having to
close by.
take
Probably important to note in case anyone is a little
what's her
bit confused,
name,
obviously,
Glint,
I just showed
as
you
a
the
legend.
Yeah.
vigor, not
True.
goodness. That is just gonna be
True.
part of the
But
mode.
Ventari, are you going to be...
Still,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Draconic
Oh,
Echo,
I guess it does eat quite a bit.
getting a kind of an interesting update as well because it's no longer going to grant boons. It still has the facet passives persisting a little bit, but now it's also
Yeah,
going to
it's the
cause
bubble.
those facet passives.
The
have
It's going to
extra
be a
bonuses
projectile
only for the
destruction
Herald, because we are doing
and a
stuff
quickness
like
generator.
Increased outgoing damage or reduced incoming damage.
Quick bubble.
Or increased outgoing
Or
healing.
what do you call that?
That
What do you
might be
call
a
it?
little bit problematic if
We
need a
you
name.
your allies, most notably the damaging ones, but they will be for the Herald themselves.
I don't... Wait, how much energy does it consume?
All right, Vindicator. So again, kind of looking at support Vindicator in World versus World. We've definitely nerfed it a little bit in previous patches.
Mobile
just looking
Fortress.
to lower it
Yeah,
again.
what would
A
you
little
call
bit,
it
it's still
though?
very, very powerful, very, very strong as a
The
support option in World versus
Doomage.
World.
The
Suicide
Doomage.
Shield is going to have its base barrier and healing reduced a little bit, as well as the attribute multiplier.
Bubble.
Again, World versus World only changes.
An old game.
Tree Song just going from 5 to 3 conditions. It's an
Minus
insanely
6 kit,
powerful
let's
ability.
say.
And again, it's kind of similar to Malik's, where you're really only pressing Tree Song a lot of the time. While you're in
Okay,
that
so it
alliance,
would
the alliance
apply
stance.
quickness.
And so 5 conditions on top of everything else it does was a little bit too strong, so it'll be now 3. And then Urn of St. Victor is going to kind of just be...
I've not played Vindicator for so long. Actually, I've not played a lot of Elite Specs. I'm just sticking my energy now.
But also the
Flamethrower everywhere.
so you will channeling this
That's all I
ability
do.
drain your energy, where before
Love
you
it.
didn't have the other upkeep, you were not draining your energy. And so this is just going to potentially change how Vindicators are using this ability, how they're playing around it a little bit more. Just potentially see how that changes up.
Isn't it a bit weird that you carry an urn around with you all the time? I've always found that a little bit odd.
All right, Warrior. Our final.
Oh, it's very
class.
Guild Wars 1.
Yeah, I
I
guess
was just
so.
about to say that.
Quickness Berserker. Alacrity Bladesworn.
Carrying it with you.
All right, well,
Well, there you go.
the
They did it.
hell?
This one anyway.
They did it.
So
Go for it.
Warrior,
Why
we got
the
some exciting stuff for
Bladesworn?
Warrior. As you can see, two
Why
things that
though?
didn't exist before are going to be here, which is that Berserker will be
The only one that I could
Bladesworn
think of was
will be
maybe
Alacrity.
Spellbreaker.
We've also got
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's very, like,
Well, 'cause that's the more
defensive.
supportive, yeah, that makes sense.
Offhand dagger.
Or with banners or something. I don't know. Again, I
The,
guess.
what the
So we're
hell?
going to start off with the rifle.
I don't get it.
Pattern here is we talk about the core stuff first and then go into elite
It's
specs.
because they're trying
Some
not
of the
to
elite
just
spec
put
stuff
it
is more
on
exciting.
support builds.
Yeah,
That's
so let's
what
start
they're
off with
doing.
the rifle changes.
But
So obviously crack
I
shot,
agree with you.
no longer going to reduce the cooldown of rifle, longbow, and harpoon gun skills. We will see some cooldown adjustments to longbow on the next slide, but first let's talk about rifle. So the big change here, we see a couple of damage improvements, some cooldown reductions, but also the big change here is that the recharge time between uses is going to be 1 second. And this is currently a variable number across all the skills. There's some that are like 5 seconds, brutal shot is 8 seconds, and it really prevents players from really utilizing one of the most powerful things that ammo bring to the table is the opportunity to really get a lot of burst value. So you can now press volley and then press volley again, get a lot of damage, or you can press brutal shot, evade, brutal shot again to evade. And it's really going to make the gameplay a bit more fluid, where you're always going to have access to the second charge of a skill when you want it, because the recharge time is only going to be 1 second between those uses.
Okay.
Like I said, just some damage adjustments. We are trying to make Explosive Shell a bit more potent in competitive modes on the damage side. So we see the cripple duration coming down in addition to while the cooldown is coming down and the damage is going up.
Rifle has had a
cripple duration is
lot
coming
of
down
changes
because
in the
of 5
last
second
few
cripple and an
years.
8-second cooldown. That
It's
does
good.
a decent chunk of damage. Is maybe
Rifle
a bit
is
too
fun on Warrior.
Maybe a little bit.
But the next slide will actually have one of the most exciting changes for Rifle, which is Brutal Shot. we've adjusted how the skill sequences things, because obviously anyone who's played the skill right now will know that you have to do the shot, immobilize your target, and then only then can you actually evade. So
Warrior is like a mini it's kind of like the honorary engineer now.
It does actually hold rifle back pretty significantly. So now the way the skill is going to work is that
it uses the rifle.
Immediately roll and evade.
But Blade's one with the skills and how they look, like the utilities specifically, like it feels very engineery sometimes because they're like
between uses,
bullets and ammo and
defensive value for warrior rifle.
Absolutely. And then
I never play that.
Cooldown reductions. Cal mentioned
obviously a rare sight on the stream.
Indeed. Just in obviously sort of response to the trait changing. But moving forward, this is a pretty interesting one we've got here. So Flurry is now going to allow you to move.
Finally.
And we are going to be changing it as well, just to be a little bit more responsive, so that the overall hits and animation time go down lower, as well as the power coefficient per hit going up. And so just
the engine kit. That's it exactly. Thank you.
Now you can move while casting it. That's there you go.
It's a kit thing.
And then moving forward, so we are removing quickness from baseline warrior mostly. Doubled standards will no longer grant quickness. That's everywhere. That's
doubled
resolution
the standard
instead. But very importantly, Martial's Cadence, which is the Grandmaster in tactics, will still give quickness in PvP and World versus World. We felt that obviously we're giving quickness to Berserker. We don't really feel as though support Berserker is something that we're going to see in World versus World PvP, and so kind of allowing the ability to still
get on it.
Support
Berserker.
Well, it's not going to happen because it seems like they've been PvP versus PvE splitting all the boon giving things, so it just won't exist.
Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll just be like
because obviously
if you build it, they
no
will come,
DPS support.
Still do a lot of damage on quickness Berserker in PvE, and so we didn't want that interaction to be happening there. Stability is still pretty powerful boon, so we felt that it was a decent option there.
Shouts.
And then Soldier's Comfort is now also going to grant protection again, sort of looking a little bit at some support Spellbreaker, potentially getting a little bit of buffs there for competitive modes.
There you go.
All right. Some
that's a lot.
Stance, cooldown.
If it gives if that trait gives stability instead of quickness, that's a powerful fucking trait.
In competitive modes, yeah.
Yeah, holy shit. Unless it's
only in PvE.
I thought they said competitive modes.
Okay.
No, stability in PvE. Quickness.
So then what is it?
Okay.
What is it in PvP?
Quickness.
Still quickness in PvP?
That's what they were saying. Like they're not going to have like quickness berserkers, so they're just keeping it.
They're leaving
it to the entire profession of warrior.
Weird. Okay.
I know. There's some good decisions and some very strange decisions with each balance patch.
Don't they like contradict themselves at times a lot with a lot of
so many
changes?
times.
Like,
I mean, they've we'll talk about this in the podcast section, but
I feel like it's weird.
There we go.
They took away like quickness for people. I'm sorry. Salty about scrapper changes back in the day.
Ooh, Heat the Soul.
Responsive,
yes.
Cast time overall, increasing the power coefficient and burn duration.
I can't remember half these things.
Notably, the burn duration will be split. This increase to 5 seconds is going to be for PvE. I believe in competitive mode, it's only going to be 3 seconds.
Oh, it's no longer giving Conti damage. Heat the Soul was the torch.
And then kind of a similar deal with Arc Divider, which is that
we haven't been to Necro yet.
There, again, just to kind of try to make it a little bit more consistent. Reduce the overall casting time. The power coefficient will be coming down a little bit for PvE and PvP just to match that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty significant reduction in PvE, but obviously the casting time is going to be over 1 second quicker, so you're going to be spending a lot less time casting the skill, give you a lot more time to use other skills to make up the damage loss. We're hoping that this is not a damage loss. The goal here is that, this is just a usability improvement. The overall damage of Berserker builds in PvE should be about the same, and we'll obviously make additional changes to fix that up if this ends up being too much of a damage loss.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
And obviously, Heat the Soul.
Take it away.
Here's the quickness trait, or boon trait.
This is good. I like it.
Quickness in competitive modes, but whenever you strike an enemy with a burst skill, you will grant to nearby allies. Okay. And so the next slide is actually going to have some relevant changes to this as well, because obviously Heat the Soul is a master tier trait, but we felt that all 3 of the Grandmaster traits for Berserker are in a pretty good spot. Obviously, Bloody Roar, great power damage trait.
Was Heat the Soul the one that gave burning for no reason to?
No, it was your torch trait, which increased your Connie damage and reduced
Oh,
your
Berserker,
torch.
right? I'm not. I was thinking.
Yeah,
Okay.
so obviously, like all 3 of the Grandmaster traits kind of have their identity. They have their place, and they all feel pretty good. So we felt that the right place to adjust things was with Heat the Soul specifically, and shift some of that, or shift rather all of the Connie damage bonus from that trait into now Blood Reaction will also give Connie damage bonus. We've also bumped up the damage of this trait a little bit as well, just overall, because it has to compete, or it really has to define like the damage output of the quickness build. You will be taking Heat the Soul instead of Blood Reaction, so that needs to be a certain amount of damage loss. This is going to, so it's going to be a bit stronger than it is before, and obviously affect condition damage in addition to power damage. And so Bloody Roar is getting a little bit of a
what this
reduction,
patch
but
is
in
doing?
the same vein as the Arcdivider change. The goal
What?
is that this is approximately the same.
It's
damage
making it so
overall
that
for DPS.
new elite specs
It's just
aren't
a nod
necessary.
to Blood Reaction needs to contribute a certain amount of damage.
Right, yeah, that's a good point, I suppose.
Damage.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it was fairly simple because Ranger and Warrior were the only outliers in this
Yeah.
But they haven't
equation.
said
Well, and,
they're
and
not.
they're giving quickness to Thief, and they're giving
Yeah,
Alacrity and
Yeah.
quickness to the other one.
which I think is smart because like they were treating these boons so with such care, and at a certain point you're just like, you gotta give it to every profession.
It does mean though that Mesmer will need better healing.
Yeah, Mesmer and Warrior still have a pretty bleh healing output.
When winds go down, a lot of the times groups kind of stop pushing into each other, stop moving. It's kind of a barrier to being able to actually interact, and so we're just kind of trying to reduce that time by a little bit. And then looking at the dagger adjustments, obviously Spellbreaker specific, this is going to be offhand dagger, which is Wastrel's Ruin is now going to be
I don't like how they always increase the amount of boons removed in PvE, because it's like PvE enemies will have like one boon on them at most. So it's
Yeah,
like,
and that's the only one that's important.
Yeah, so really,
why are we doing this?
offhand dagger is
Why?
kind of supposed to be more of like that.
It just
It's hard to
invalidates
say,
a
because,
really
Wastrel's
interesting
Ruin
part of the
right now is just
game.
all damage, but the goal of these changes is to make offhand dagger a bit more of that utility focused offhand, because obviously Bladestorm has the projectile hate. Wastrel's Ruin will now have Boon Rip, very thematic to Spellbreaker, and then adding a little bit of extra.
Because,
barrier to make it
yeah,
a little bit
how many
more,
enemies in
like that
PvE
utility
actually have that many
hybrid weapon.
boons?
Just
And
a
whenever
little
they
bit
do,
of
it's like kind of
defense so that
exciting because
you
you're like,
feel
ooh,
like you
a boon.
Yeah,
They have
it's
one
like
might on them.
literally it's a
can
it's a point that doesn't make any difference. Like it literally doesn't do anything to
Yeah.
increase the amount of.
Unless they're planning on like reworking how
We'll find out.
enemies apply boons. I don't know.
Maybe.
So this is going to be where you're granting Alacrity on Bladesworn. This has been reworked, the trait. So Dragon Slash is now going to have a lower maximum charge level. It consumes more flow per charge, just so you're not sitting in that Dragon Slash trying to charge up for quite as long while you're, sort of really just trying to apply Alacrity. Its damage per charge is also increased, just to make sure that you're not losing out on that damage.
Daring Dragon, the
And
one
then
that
grant Alacrity to nearby allies when
stunned
you
and
use
stuff,
that Dragon
or is it the
Slash.
other one?
Yeah, so we've kind of fudged the damage calculation for Dragon Slash a little bit when you specifically have Daring
It's the
Dragon,
lower
because
maximum
obviously it raises
charge.
Oh, okay.
your
And you
maximum
can just do it
number
really
of charge
fast.
to 5.
Yeah.
And with the current damage equation, the crazy exponential scaling of Dragon Slash, that would be a pretty massive damage reduction to the point that this build would just not be relevant in pretty much anywhere. So we have, as noted, we've increased the initial scaling a little bit when you have Daring Dragon, just to make sure that the damage number is obviously still going to be lower, but it's going to be a bit more reasonable of a damage loss when you are granting Alacrity.
Again,
All right,
Alacrity I don't think
moving
makes
on
any
to
sense.
Elementalist. Got some
Into the 2/3 of the way down, Roy.
2/3 of the way
Theoretically.
down. Wow. Theoretically, yeah. Maybe we could slow down.
Ish.
Actually, we're kind of breezing through this. I mean, like I said
I
before,
think
we could
Ranger
slow
had a
down.
bunch of changes.
That's true. You think?
Yeah, maybe a few.
But all right. So
Elementalist.
Elementalist. Let's talk about that. So we've got some damage build improvements for Tempest. We've got some quickness usability improvements for Catalyst. We've got some Weaver improvements specifically in PvP, as well as some offhand dagger improvements, which we
No
will be showing
staff.
off in-game.
Sure.
Yep, some really cool stuff. We're actually
I will let-
starting with the dagger improvements.
Cal talk about that, and I will play the game a little bit.
Yeah, so
I'm just going to play the
big piece of these changes is
game. Just
trying to
you do the job.
improve the reliability of some of these skills.
Offhand
So
dagger.
Fire Grab, just getting a little bit wider of an attack angle, make it a bit more, a little easier to hit. It's not going to be huge, but it's going to be
Animation
just
is cool. Always, I like.
Isn't that the
a bit more
same?
consistent. You know,
It's the
there's
same
a lot of times
animation.
where
Oh no, I just
can't
like
really-
it.
or at least when I press Firebrand,
I just
how did
like
that
it. That's
miss,
all.
you know?
On bigger
Yeah.
All the
characters,
LE
like
players
on
don't
Ellie
really
as
know
well,
what
you
they're
can't
doing.
see it
So now
all.
Fire Grab should be, you know, a bit more consistent
Actually-
with what you'd actually expect.
Is it?
And then Updraft
Maybe
getting a
it's just
similar
smaller
change, make the
and
radius
more
a bit
confined.
larger. It's just a little bit too difficult to hit now.
I've got a
Obviously, we
Norn
had
LA.
the delayed knock
So the
a long time
Updraft,
ago
the
to
AoE is
remove that
bigger.
problematic instant knock gameplay. But the 180 radius maybe a little bit too easy to walk out of. So now 240, meaning that if you position well, space it well, it will be a little bit more required to dodge the skill as opposed to just walking out. And then the big change here is going to be the adjustment to churning Earth.
Ooh.
Some
That
players may
was
not know what this skill
3/4 of a
does
second
because
cast?
you know,
Oh, wait.
you don't want
Oh,
to
it's a
press it,
leap.
you know, channel for a long
What?
time,
Oh.
sit there
What
unable to move,
the-
and then eventually you'll slam the ground. And
So
Yeah,
it's less
because
damage.
turning off was just like this thing where you,
drop
it
their
just
keyboard,
wasn't.
you know, their-
It was
their
very
wireless headphones
situated
connected for
and
a moment,
annoying.
and
Well,
they're
if you had
ready.
lightning
I like
flash,
that.
Wait, I get
But
hit by
most of-
churning earth all the time.
Oh.
it was fun.
Yeah,
with lightning
I
flash.
liked the
But
idea
yeah,
of needing
so
to
turning Earth might be a
prepare
little bit
or like
hard to use.
PvP.
hit,
Yeah, that was
stand still
Change
for
it
like
to
a
have
big
little
hit. I
bit
think
of
if they just
movement
buffed
components.
it
This really
a
plays
little
into
bit more.
Dagger offhands. Part of Dagger offhands.
kinda
So is
like
it-
it.
A lot.
They don't mention
You know,
that
a
the
little more
damage would be
fluid
lower,
gameplay,
but
more-
it must be
more
lower the
mobile,
damage,
you know,
right?
Ride the lightning, updraft, a little bit of
Yeah, I think it looks. I think it's
you know,
better.
skills like that. So turning
I
Earth is
don't
going
like
to
that
lean into that as
channel.
well. Do a short little hop, pretty similar to what we've seen on some mace kits in the past, and then slam the ground. So most importantly, the damage will come down a little bit. Obviously, the cast time is going to be significantly lower, so it's going to do less damage. It's also going to be much more reliable. The radius is going to be a little bit smaller because you have that leap component, but it should be a skill that you can reliably at least attempt to hit an enemy with.
Yeah.
And
You're no
I
longer
think it
only
feels pretty
pressing
good.
forward.
Playing with it internally, it feels
All
pretty
right.
good.
Yeah, and then we didn't show us or mention it yet, but obviously Frost Roar and Cleansing Wave having the cooldowns lowered a little bit.
Updraft.
PvP.
Oh, interesting.
Moving on. So
Okay.
we've got the glyph trait is no longer going to be
Ooh.
lowering the cooldown on glyphs. It will grant
Yeah,
resistance,
that's
though,
true.
which
We
is
keep
good
forgetting,
steps,
but
and
there's
then,
so many,
swimming, or
so
egg
many
glitches.
abilities
Well,
and
those
trait.
Yeah, it's cooldown
Inscription is
Utility,
a
sorry.
great example of a cooldown reduction trait that never gets played. And it turns out a lot of the glyphs are still good skills and viable skills and good cooldown skills, even without the cooldown reduction trait. So they don't really need to get that cooldown reduction rolled in baseline. Glyph of Elemental Harmony probably is one of them where we do want that. And, you know, is that 25 because of the existence of the CDR trait, even if that trait isn't usually taken? We didn't want it to be at 20 and then you take the trait and it goes to 16, potentially a little bit too strong. But now, without that cooldown reduction trait existing, heal glyph down to 20 seconds, potentially another interesting choice.
Yeah.
And similarly, Arcane Brilliance getting a nice little buff here with the cooldown reduction of Elemental Surge going away. That cooldown reduction getting rolled in baseline for PvE and Worldly World. This skill's actually already a 15-second cooldown in PvP, so we didn't want to bring it down to like 12, but we've just made the skill a bit more reliable, more of the base healing and less of the scaling per strike. So it'll be about the same if you still hit 5 targets, but in those situations where you're only hitting 1 target or hitting no targets, potentially just a much more valuable skill. You know,
Smart.
about a 5k heal.
Absolutely.
Not too bad for a 15-second cooldown.
Indeed. And then we see a similar state with the Signet skill. Excuse me, Signet trait,
Aura.
which no longer reduces the cooldown. However, it is going to grant an aura to the Elementalist after using a Signet skill. Important note here is that, you know,
But is that on
how a lot
top
other Signet traits
of
like this function? It's
them
not
always
going to be
being
an aura
the
based
Signet
on
trait
the
still working
attunement
after
you
being
get,
used?
But instead, it'll be an aura
Yes.
based on the Signet that you use.
Okay.
And we got
Yes.
the cooldowns
So
for
most
some
of them are.
things.
Ellie just has a lot of
straightforward,
auras
you know,
now.
Signet of
Yeah,
Fire
I
gives
mean
you Fire
that's going to be
Aura.
good for a few
Aura.
builds.
Signet of Restoration will also give you Frost Aura, so it'll be 2 Frost
Using a
Auras.
Signet skill.
But otherwise they will have
That's
more
interesting.
unique components. And this will actually play in. Sorry, what?
Auromancer,
I just saw a
man.
lot of Frost Auras.
Gonna be pretty.
Potentially a lot of Frost Auras.
Yeah, this could be. You
Um,
could have a really interesting like toughness
other-
catalyst, like tank,
You know, Signet
where you
of
just
Earth
have like
also
a
getting
bunch of reduced
Slight
damage by like
adjustment to
increasing
its
your
passive effect, changing
aura
it from
granting, and then you get that
flat
buff
toughness
with
to
that
just a
trait.
strike damage reduction.
Side noting
This is
Ellie
a
in
nod
PvP
to,
is
you know,
going to be
in-game
even
PvP
more
where
ridiculous
having
now.
I
toughness
kind of
on
like
your gear,
it.
having
Catalyst
toughness
is like
on
that
your
kind of
utility skills
tanky, but
might
so is
actually
Weaver.
control your
But Weaver's
tank.
doing it from dodging
We
and
do
barrier.
want this
And
to
Catalyst was
potentially be a
already like
relevant
pretty
piece
strong in
of
PvP on the
Climate
sides.
Tempest going forward. More to that.
It was ridiculous, in fact.
But this will kind of tie into.
It might be a bit more
Written in
scary.
Stone is a big piece of this.
I don't know if they changed. I can't remember if they
Fire
changed it
Signet
though
of
in
Earth.
between when I last
We
played.
brought the cooldown way down on Signet of Earth. hopefully making it a competitive
Honestly,
utility slot. We'll really see how that
Good
build
for
plays out. Let's look at the
Condi
Aura
builds and
builds,
healer
potential
builds,
slides.
because like you
Yeah.
could
We do
use the
potentially see this
Signet
as
of
a more
Water
viable
now,
option.
or like the Signet of Restoration, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the heal.
The one, yeah, it heals, and it'll also give you a ice aura, I guess now, and then
No,
you'll
that's
be able to convert that
It's
aura
kind of a nod
with your
to
weapons.
a long
for
time
extra
ago,
healing.
many years ago,
true
Arcane
for
Prowess
self healing.
changed from Fury to Might in all game modes, and this was at a time where we didn't really want to split boons like this, and it was kind of a nod to
I know,
Fury being
yeah,
much more
Jace,
available
yeah.
to other trait lines, and
It's
the
pretty
Might just
big.
being a bit more valuable in
I don't know.
PvP specifically. But it was a pretty big hit to Ellie in competitive modes, honestly, because when you can't play air trait line, losing access to that Fury on a 2-minute swap is so big for stuff like burning speed combos, or just having Fury in general is so good. And so now that we're a little bit more open to changing the
Even more
on
reason to
particular
always
effects, this
take
felt
the
like a
arcane
great
trait
spot
line.
to bring that Fury back in competitive modes. And once we get over to Catalyst, we'll see that Energized Elements has changed from Fury to Might, because that trait honestly was trying to fill this gap that was previously filled by Arcane Fury, is what the trait was called at the time. But now that Arcane Prowess is now giving Fury, the Catalyst trait will now give Might instead of Fury. So now it'll be accessible to
Okay.
all Elementalist specializations.
Indeed. All right, looking at Tempest and Weaver together. So Tempestuous Aria is
But-
now no longer going to cause shouts and inflict
Air is
weakness.
already
Instead,
accessible
it'll
to
grant the
all.
Tempest a bonus to outgoing damage for a period of time after applying an aura to an ally. So just again, as we mentioned, trying to maybe prop up some DPS Tempest builds a little bit here with this trait.
Okay.
And then we've got some Sword Weaver buffs here for PvP. Anything you want to?
Yeah, so really, like, Tempestuous Aria felt... The whole DPS Tempest thing, it felt like there was just one piece missing. Like, if there's just one more damage trait, it would really tie everything together. And Tempestuous Aria felt like the best spot to do it, because it already has that Might component on Shouts. And the weakness...
They're not really
it was
tackling
kind of
the
thematic that
alacrity.
Shouts empowered your allies
on
and
Tempest,
weakened your
though.
enemies, but we really
Well,
leaned
they're
into
thinking
the offensive
DPS
service
alacrity
traits.
Tempest.
Shouts are still going to grant Might to allies, but then adding
But this isn't granting
aura
alacrity.
component for the Tempest themselves.
No,
You're
it's
still
a
just gonna
different-
have to spam
obviously Revenant
overloads.
Stone is going to play into
Yeah.
this now, because when
Uh-oh.
you take Signet of Fire,
Well-
Sorry, Griff.
Signet of Restoration, these are going
so
to
sorry.
be giving you this damage
They did
bonus,
it so good on
and
Druid and
really-
Spectre.
just enabling this build, because obviously you're going to have more auras from like Fire Swap when you have Fire Trait line, or overloading.
You
when
already
have the overload
tweeted
trait
about
because
your
auras,
scepter
and
build.
then
I'm
install
very
to the Connie
sad.
build, fresh
Goodbye,
air,
my sweet
I've been in a
fun
bad
scepter
mood
build.
since.
Well,
I've been in a
Scepter
bad mood since the.
Your
Yeah.
facial
Yeah.
expression
Overload air
changed
over and over and
immediately
over
after you
again.
realized.
And then
So funny.
obviously you still have auras on weapon skills, potentially do some combos, leap combos.
Hey.
some auras.
I had to go through the many
And so
stages of
we'll actually be
grief with
keeping an eye on how
Firebrand,
this actually
so
plays out.
I play
I feel ya.
engineer.
But the
Hello.
expectation is
Like
that
Scrapper.
this bonus
Like,
will
was deep
well, you had
sadness.
nothing to aspire to begin with, so
Oh, that's so true,
That's true.
actually.
Absolutely.
So accurate.
A couple more.
You have Hollow Smith,
Catalyst
that's your
changes.
only saving
So
grace.
Twist of
I
Fate
don't even like playing though.
is gonna
I
be
love
basically
Hollow's
kind of
fun.
the Shake it off treatment.
I
which
like
is
the look of
just
it.
Reduce the ammo count from 2 to 1,
Oh,
so
yeah.
just a single charge of this, but the cooldown
like
is
some
way
parts of
down
it.
from 75 to 30 seconds.
Oh, still
Just
longer
make this a
ammunition
little bit
trait. Okay.
easier to
I
kind
mean,
of play
still.
around in PvP, where if you had to for some reason use both charges very quickly, you're now on a 75-second cooldown for your stun break. Felt pretty bad. So for PvP only,
What?
we are going to be changing that.
It's just
And
like a
then we
normal
got,
stun break
as
now.
Cal mentioned
Oh, no,
before,
yeah,
Endless
but
Elements,
I
we
went ahead and saw
Theory for
Spectacular
competitive
Sphere.
modes, with that Arcane Prowess change. And then Spectacular Sphere is going to grant quickness. Again,
Okay.
Oh, I guess because it's no
Catalyst
longer
a little
just
bit.
on air. I guess that makes
Deploying
sense.
your Jade Sphere in
Okay.
any
I
attunement,
guess.
in addition to any existing boons granted.
Maybe 3
reduces the
seconds?
restoration from 5
I
to
guess so. Now it's like saying you could be
Yep, so
a
this is a nod
quickness
to-
granting Condi
Basically, a
Tempest
usability
if you want it
improvement
to
for
be.
Quickness Catalyst, because right now all the quickness obviously comes from Air
Catalyst.
Sphere. It
That's what I
kind
meant.
of
Yeah.
forces
Yes.
rotations to be in a certain
I mean,
way.
I guess you
and
could have
it's,
already.
maybe not the most
Yeah.
the
You
most
just dip
fluid
into
to
air
have
for a
to play
sec.
around Air
Yeah.
Sphere all the time. So now with it being on any sphere, you just have a lot more flexibility, and the quickness duration reduction is just a nod to, well, we want the quickness to be about the same. It's just you get it from more areas instead of just always. having
Okay, I
full
guess
Air
that's
Sphere,
fair.
Air Sphere.
Exactly.
All right.
Yay.
Whoa.
Alacrity Scourge!
There you
There you go.
Indeed.
There
Okay,
you
this is
go.
the best patch ever.
Coming soon.
Oh my god, Griff, don't. Not
That's a
yet.
wild one.
Not yet.
And
Calm
then we've
down.
also got
Calm
some
down. It's
cool
gotta
new
be
adjustments
it's gotta be
to
good.
this world. I don't know if you wanted
It's gonna be
to
good.
talk about that at all.
It's gonna be
before.
It was the only support other
might as well say
than
it now, instead of
Vindicator.
talking about it every time we adjust boon removal. Necro, and Scourge, mostly Scourge. but
It
I
really
really
is just making all
is
the
a
classes
pretty
complete.
Big component of
I
boon
really
rips
hope
in
it's the
World
Sand
War
Savant
II,
Grandmaster,
since that it
because then
has,
you can get rid of the
way more
giant
than
Scourge
other
shade and
Spellbreaker
really
is a
like
little bit
not
more
have to deal with
melee
that
range.
balance.
And,
No,
we've talked a lot about
it's gonna be on
the
some weird
boon
trait that
rip
you're not even
versus
thinking.
Literally, it's gonna be on like
kind of
Nourishing
battle
Ashes.
with
I'm like,
Nourishing
ah.
And this is still like something that's ongoing.
I think you're
We haven't
right.
seen a ton of
We'll
boon
be on
adjustments in this patch, but we are doing a decent number of boon rip adjustments, especially on a lot of the range skills. And the goal here is that, we are going to keep an eye on this, and we will probably end up producing a lot of boons in a future update. We didn't quite get to all those things for this patch, but the reduction to all these ranged boon rips is one, to bring down the number of boon rips overall, because that is part of our goals for World v World in the long term. And we want the
Is it
kind of
World v
boon
World
balance to
only?
be in a sensible spot. So this
Please.
particular set of changes might push it a little bit more toward the boons are very good and very prevalent meta, but that also potentially enables pushing just a bit more. And
Right
getting
now,
into those
check-in. How are
melee
you doing?
fights instead of just camping at range or getting boon ripped at range and not being
I'm
able to
I'm hopeful.
really
I'm
push
hopeful.
in.
There's quite a few
And so
problems
that's
with like
really the
boon
drive behind
removal
a
and
lot
boon
of
strip in World v
these
World at the
particular
moment. So
boon adjustments.
Mm.
And obviously we'll be, like I said, this isn't the end of changes to boons for World versus World, but we will be keeping a close eye on like how these changes play out. Does this actually enable pushing? Where are the sources that we need to remove on the boon side of things now that the boon rips are coming down? But we felt like all the things that we're going to talk about for this update are pretty good adjustments for World v World as a whole.
Absolutely.
But we'll
All right.
start with some support. Go for
Ooh,
it.
regeneration.
So, blood. Now
Instead of healing?
Ritual
In a
light.
I think it's on
in
top.
In addition.
Life from death.
Because the heal is
Okay.
pretty shit.
Allies, increase level.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's not very good.
So a little bit of a nod to potentially some more support.
Life from
Scourge
death
when
no
you get
longer
the
revives
Alacrity going
allies and
there.
increases outgoing healing.
Support.
Oh, I like
Scourge
that.
Yeah, I think a big piece
And
of
does
this
what, sorry?
as well is that
Oh,
obviously
okay,
Scourge
yeah.
right now on live.
Okay.
is
That one I never
very
took that
good
trait.
at
Isn't that
very
the one where you
specific
just
things.
hang
Very,
around
very
and
good at
like they
reviving,
don't?
and, it has a
It's good in
ton of
PvP.
very input. And
No, that's a minor.
if we were
Life
just
from
to
death
add
is the
Alacrity
top
to
master one, where
Scourge
when
with
you
basically
exit
no
Shroud, you
changes
heal
to
and
the
revive
life,
allies, but
Right.
just one packet.
Oh,
packet.
okay.
I never
So it
took
just
that
have
one.
all the tools that it
I took
currently
it, but I don't
has
think I
to
noticed
Alacrity
it.
support build. And
For support builds.
Yeah,
we're a
because you
little
know
bit
what? You just
concerned with
realize
what
you
that would look like,
you
so
take
there
transfusion
are a
for that
few changes
revive.
in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
patch
that's
that
true
are
actually.
bringing
That's
down
true.
some
Maybe I
of
So
tested
it'll
it.
heal a little
Oh,
bit
it's in the same area,
and-
right? Okay.
So now this is just going to be
Well,
increasing your
because we
outgoing
are
healing when
Oh,
you're.
that's good.
But it'll also
Shroud
heal a
would be
bit because they haven't removed that from
pretty
it.
competitive and not be
This is
something that's
true.
clearly
Mm.
This is true. So it'll heal and then increase your healing out of Shroud.
Same note, sort of here.
Yes.
Transfusion.
It only pulls down allies on its initial activation.
Yes.
And reduce the revive pulse from 2 to
Oh.
1. when
Yeah,
you
'cause that
with
was
Scourge
delayed,
in
wasn't it?
PvE only.
Right.
So if you're slotting Scourge,
Oh,
if
wait.
you're in PvE.
Okay, so
revive
Scourge,
pulse
it's
is down.
nerfed a bit.
Quickening Thirst has been reworked. Again, Life Force when you strike
Life
enemies with
Siphon's
dagger
an
skill.
instant
And
cast
then we
now.
got some,
And used with
little
Scourge.
change to
That's
Life Siphon, which I will
interesting.
show off quickly in game.
Isn't that like that's the
Nice-
first time
nice
I've
little
ever seen
update.
that?
Makes the
Isn't
skill a
it that
bit
kind of
more-
thing?
No.
Like
that
No.
a trait
instant
changes
done that.
completely
Like a
different?
single
Like
attack
They
straight
probably
Yeah,
did
I
that
guess
with
that makes
Firebrand. They do it with a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that
really,
specifically is like a
building
big.
grudge against the Guardian NPC.
That's a big
I
trait.
don't know what you're
Well, I guess yeah, they do.
But yeah, Life Siphon, so you're gonna
Engineer or
do
stuff.
an
But they went
initial
back
strike
on
the
those
enemy,
kinds
and
of
then that
traits.
Life Siphon is going to
Mhm.
happen without needing to continue to channel. This is
Oh,
just
so it's
nice
no
little
longer a
skill
channeled
improvement. It's also
skill.
just a
Wait,
lot
what
Okay.
more
happened? It was just an
For
instant.
For Dagger
fire
2,
the
it's now
skill
just
and then
instant.
Oh,
ignore
good.
that Life
Good.
Siphon
Yeah,
happening
that was
Okay.
annoying.
and not be
I like
locked
it.
into that
Yeah,
one.
Dagger
So wait,
is
not like
are
it
you
was-
allowed
We've
to
reduced the
attack
cast time of
while
Life Siphon
it
so many
siphons?
Well, it's only
times to
it's
try
just
to
an
get
instant
this
cast, so
skill
yeah,
and
it's just.
No, it's a
Never mind
3/4. You still have a
Is
cast
it?
time, but it's no longer like a
Like
1.5, 2 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Almost like more of a bruise
And I like the
rebutton,
change
bruise
to
remain
its
hand. We see that a little bit. Quickening
dagger
Thirst
trait.
change.
You gain.
Dagger
I mean,
skills
actually,
What was that?
not really.
What was the
Quickening
change?
Thirst. Gain life force when you strike an enemy with a dagger. They didn't need that. It's not like they were struggling with life force management on their dagger.
A bit more life force, a bit more sustained.
I would have preferred if that, like, when you attack. I
what
would have
you're
preferred this
using.
to be like when you strike an enemy with a dagger, you heal allies, like the vampiric blood sharing
of suffering
idea.
opposite of what we're
Because it's
talking
in your
about boon
support
mode, which
line.
is that the trade
This
been
is
reversed,
this
and
is
now it
pro-
will
this is
finish
promoting those more melee because so like, I'm thinking about the alacrity thing addition, and they're promoting more melee combat rather than staff and range. So like
grip from Locust Signet by 1, which I don't think is on here.
that alacrity is going to be in Shroud
In World v World only,
on
Locust will have
Scourge,
one
I reckon. The Shroud
Yeah, so obviously 2 with the
Yeah.
trade. We
Yeah,
got
I'm
Scourge.
excited to see how I'm
obviously. I mean, I'll
worried.
give a quick spiel.
I'm gonna
on
temper
trade.
my
This
expectations.
is
that's
It's
what
a
I
different
think.
flavor of cooldown reduction because the way that it gives CDR is a little bit more interesting.
Oh, vampirism as
still
well, Signet. Nice.
Kind of always felt like a trait that.
Oh no,
was
of
very
course they're all going to go
cool
down.
At the same
Forgot about
time.
that.
Yeah, the
while we were looking at
utilities.
CDR traits,
Forgot about that.
we saw the Signet trait and decided, well, let's
I
just
really
reverse it.
like that
And obviously
change
Signets
across
have
the
suffered
board.
a long time ago. Some
That's-
people
they're
only
so
liked the
good.
trait when it corrupted boons and granted might.
It's just going to increase the pace of the game. It really gives you more options and builds. There are so many lines where you're just like, oh, if I take this, I have to take
As
that.
a master tier trait, we still felt like the boon rip component was good, and it's like a very threatening.
That's going to change a lot.
Very
Just in
necro
that change
A lot
alone.
of boon rip, so giving that back.
We'll finally
mechanic
see
corrupt,
Scourges
so it doesn't
again.
go too crazy. But
in PvE.
just giving a lot of potential access to boon rip, and retooling some of these.
With
signets
people
as
just
well.
not playing, I haven't really
We see, like,
PvE'd
reducing
like
the number of
raids
body
and stuff for a
transfers.
long
Yeah,
time.
I
so-
have
Signets
never,
have
I haven't seen a Scourge in a long
Oh
time.
really?
Lower, down from
Interesting.
45
Yeah,
all the way to
because they're
35.
very niche,
Now,
just
these Signet
because like
builds,
Druid
maybe
has
Signet's
done
fight,
everything better.
Oh,
They give the
right,
alacrity, they
okay.
have really good
Signet
res
both look
potential.
good.
Mhm.
We obviously have lesser vampirism in the blood magic trait line, and even vampirism on the healing slot. Potentially a lot of boon rip. So I'm really interested to see if like this version of Signets of Suffering really allows Necros to dive deep into that boon rip build. And
Necro's probably
especially
my
on the
second
Necro
favorite
side,
class.
where that was something that existed a long time ago that maybe in
Yeah,
a bit of
fun.
an overtuned fashion.
So you have to take
now
the
it's coming back
trait
in a
to
bit more of
remove
a,
boons
hopefully,
now.
balanced and healthy fashion.
It seems like that's what
So,
they're saying.
Pretty interested to see
Oh.
how this trade plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So here we got some of the first changes
Okay.
for the conditions.
I like that.
Boon stuff. So Unholy Feast now removes boons instead of converting them into conditions.
Okay.
The damage multiplier will be going up, sort of as a bit of a reflection in World
I think it's smart removing them instead of converting.
Yeah. Notably,
will be going down.
the damage is basically getting shifted more into the front half. Obviously, Unholy Burst only triggers if you hit
I
an
like
enemy under a certain
the thing
health
is
threshold.
I like the
So,
play around with
while
that
we
because
want-
sometimes
definitely
you
want
just
to change
wouldn't
from a
use it
boon
depending
from
on
a
what
boon
they're
rip
running
build to
boon
a more
wise because you
thematic
can turn into a
build
or whatever.
having boon
I
removal
like
rather
the
than
corruption of
instead
that
of a conduit weapon at all.
and the converting.
I-
Sorry.
That is obviously a slight.
I do
like the
too. I
play.
wouldn't mind if
We
it got
wanted to
converted
build
into a
more consistency
specific
in
condition.
That's really what these first two notes are.
Maybe to play more with that weapon or
Spider's
whatever
Spirit
that skill was
also
trying to
uses
do.
the Unholy Feast.
Yeah. Like, all right. So it wasn't like the normal kind of you transfer
like
stability
Scourge.
into fear, but it's a specific like
Yeah,
it goes into
kinda like
torment.
Scourge.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I like that as a better idea because it's still got the theme there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Or vulnerability, even if it was just vulnerability.
Yeah,
or
for
something.
Axe, you get a lot of benefit from having more vul on targets, but you can't really stack it up too quickly most times. So if instead of like removing it, got converted to like 4 stacks of vul or something.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Now you'd have to sit on the weapon set for almost 20 seconds.
Because I like that theme. Because not really anyone has that face.
And
It's
again,
like very
we're looking
thematic.
at
I
the
like the kind of.
ranged, a lot of ranged abilities that are going to be ripping boons here, as opposed to maybe more of the melee ones. But again,
Oh,
with
there's
blood,
more that aren't
river boons and
conveying.
conditions, but the cooldown for competitive modes.
Oh, man,
is also going
really?
to be going down there.
So
and then
that
once
so
it's
the
really
that
blown,
mechanic's just gone now.
looks like
they're winding it.
Yeah, Enfeebling
Oh,
Seems
Blood
like it
is
is.
good on this one because
That's
I
like-
think it could have still existed, but
of necro skills just kind of get boon corrupts or
I
boon
think this will be
rips tacked onto them.
healthier overall.
And
But I imagine
we're
in the
looking at
coming
boon rips
balance
in general
patches,
for
they'll
Wave
start to see the
12 world, obviously
reaction
people
and they'll
blood
probably
is like
start
the
funneling it in
one
slowly to
list.
like converts
We
to a
felt that just
specific
removing it
condition
entirely
or
was kind of the right
Yeah,
decision.
I just
having
like-
one skill that
I
does
love
that.
converting
Focus Dagger on
stability
what
into
Dagger's
fear
trying to
though.
do. It has
That's so fun.
Enfeebling Blood, which is weakness,
Like,
bleeding,
it's just a
and
real
obviously has
fun,
the-
like, oh, there are stability, go!
He transfers from Dagger.
And then you can
It
just
really
burst them down.
focuses
It's just
on
like these little.
those things, and if we
very
need
specific,
more
yeah.
on
but-
Necro,
You can still
that is
corrupt.
something to
It
say.
might make you more
But we want them to
eager
be
to
in,
take
like,
corrupt
more
boon.
I take corrupt boon in PvP
The
anyway
utility.
because it's
specific
fun.
locations. I
And it
think
has
having,
2
like,
charges,
corrupt
so-
boon is
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. No,
you
no,
let
no.
me
They
get it.
reduced it to 1. It's not 2 charges anymore. It's 1. Corrupt boon.
Oh.
doing
I
a
changed it.
large amount of boon rip,
Oh.
Yeah,
as
last
opposed to
balance
having, like,
patch.
all these single boon rips or boon corrupts
In competitive?
all over the place.
I guess it doesn't matter in
A
PvP.
little bit more
No, exactly.
way around. It feels like you're just
Yeah, they
always
changed
ripped
it,
as opposed
so I
to those
got rid of it.
moments where the boon.
I think they lowered the cooldown a bit, but
make sure that you're ready for it, play around it potentially.
the reason why I took it was because it had 2 charges. I was like, boom, boom, Spellbreaker, Guardian, dead.
To Grandmaster
Oh wait, here we go.
From corruption. Barrier from this trait will only apply around the shade and will affect 5 targets. This trait now also grants alacrity to allies when you grant them barrier from a Scourge deal.
All right.
Notably, I believe.
Wait, which one's that? Is that the one you said?
They're now changing feed from corruption to somewhere else.
It is alacrity.
Oh.
It is alacrity. Look at that. Great. Alacrity in all modes. Excellent. Sandstorm Shroud now pulse barrier to allies near the Scourge before it detonates. Embrace of Grit no longer causes Sand Flare to grant barrier to allies, but it will grant might when you apply barrier in addition to its previous effects. And Sand Flare.
Abrasive Grit, basically going back to the old behavior.
I still don't like Sand Savant
This is a change that
as an
happened a while
idea,
ago
but this is good. Okay.
The might's quite cool.
The problem
as
that we
well.
identified
when
is
you
that
apply
Sand Flare
barrier,
is
it's a bit like
free
Mechanist,
in
right?
How much barrier
It used to be that. That was the original
Is that
trait.
the original
On
one?
a DPS
Oh,
So
right,
they just
okay, sorry.
reverted
still
it.
gives so much barrier to
okay,
allies, so it
okay,
got
okay.
tied into Abrasive Grit. But realistically, we feel like the right change is just reduce the amount of barrier to allies. And we
I
can
like
see
that.
And
the
Sand
heal
Flare just
power
gives a reduced
scaling
amount of
so that
barrier.
support
Flatline, okay.
builds can still get that.
This is
good-
kind of cool.
That good barrier application from Sand
So
Flare.
it's not
but
just the
Abrasive
alacrity,
Grit
it's
can
the
just
might.
Go back to what it used to be.
Oh,
All right. I don't know if you want to talk about
it's
alacrity.
more boons as well, right? Because what we're talking
I think
about
I
is
gave a
it
lot
just
of
it was
spiel
very
already.
niche. You said, right?
Like,
which is a good point. But
we
now
could
it's
definitely
less
bring down
so.
some of
It's like
Scourge's
more like might,
support
alacrity,
potential, just to bring it a bit
survival,
more in line with
healing,
other support builds
increase as
as
well.
Getting alacrity should be. It'll definitely
That's
be something
pretty
we're
cool.
keeping an eye on. I mean, I said
What
it about
the
everything.
no?
It's a meme at this point, I'm sure.
Manifest
Keeping a close
Sandshade now
eye
only
on
lasts 8
basically
seconds.
Every large rework type change, we're always keeping. a close eye on.
What?
So there's that, I guess.
That's actually why we hired Taylor, so we had more people to keep eyes on things.
More eyes. Yes.
More eyes. Yes.
Most important.
Indeed. All right, so Sand Cascade, reduce the base barrier of the skill, level 80 from 1188 to 906, PV
Nothing
only.
too crazy.
Yep. And then reduce healing attribute scaling. Manifest Sand Shade is going to have its shade duration reduced. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have note
So
for
this
that.
is a
What?
nod to how sandshades actually work. And obviously, I wonder how many people. I'm not reading the chat, so I don't know how many people are freaking out about this. But like, theoretically, especially without the change to manifest sandshade, Scourge could potentially upkeep alacrity on 10 targets because you could have three shades out, and barrier is going to be applied around all of these shades, and then give them alacrity, which is very, very scary.
Mhm.
That's pretty strong.
So instead of
this
putting on a
is
different
still gonna be
trait
possible
and
a
making it
little
work
bit, because
differently.
you could burst press all 3 of your shades,
Or
and
limiting
then
the amount of alacrity that
barrier
would be
skill to
provided
get
whenever you
large
cast a
allies
barrier.
but
Okay.
that won't be really sustainable in the long term, because then you'll have a lot of time where you just don't have shades. And it's a little bit of a quirk of like how sand shades just work, and it's something that we need to keep a close eye on as this gets played on live.
Where have I heard that before?
I obviously want Scourge to be like an alacrity build and in line with other alacrity
I was
builds.
like,
so it should
bro, I
give
was just like
meaningful
talking like a
alacrity to
viewer.
5 targets,
I was like,
and
okay.
up to 10 targets.
Absolutely.
That's funny.
All right. Sadistic Searing, same sort of deal as before with the other
Oh.
trait cooldown reduction.
Well, I don't like that.
Trait cooldown
Well,
reduction
at
is,
least they said they're keeping
but
an eye on it.
in competitive
Maybe
mode,
they'll
you have
revert
its
it.
loading duration increased a little bit.
Or
now
change
no
it,
longer
like
reduces
to
the
one
cooldown.
one of
Trail
what one of
Language
you
is
two
gonna have
said.
some of that cooldown baked in baseline, split obviously between the two modes. Breach is going to also have its cooldown lowered.
Serpent's Ivan. Oh,
However, also notably, it's going to have its duration reduced.
Now
It's
send
kind
a
of the same thing
serpent
as
to a
the
target area which will
Women's
detonate
Championship
bombs.
Breaker, just
Oh.
going down from 4 to 3 seconds.
Oh, that's
Same sort of
cool.
deal.
It's
a really
much
large
better,
AoE
but
that's
I
on the
would
ground
have
for,
liked it.
a long time,
I wanna see
and
that animation.
It just completely stops
Show
pushing.
us.
it's probably like just a small snake. If they make that scale bigger,
I would
it'll
love
look
it.
really
I
cool.
think that would
But
look
it
cool.
just sends out a
Just
very
people now
small
also create
snake. It's
Oh,
kind
is
of
it?
sad.
Oh,
It's
okay.
very sad.
Cooldown
That's,
again.
making sure
baseline.
that Scourge support has access to
Size does matter
these offensive
sometimes.
boons that many.
I don't
field support,
understand
alacrity
Aegis,
support
though.
builds have access to.
Yep, a little bit of a
It's
rework.
just-
They're giving
Like, they-
Aegis for
which
builds,
now
that's all.
sends the serpent to target areas
They
that
just
have
like throw stuff at
survival,
things and they're like,
barrier,
sure.
regen
Yeah, it
maybe,
just feels weird for a necro to give.
have a boon
It's
conversion
very
to opponent.
anti-guardian. They're very anti-guardian, and then like
That
give
trait
mages.
removal.
That's so weird.
And then important to note here, which is that if you take Path of Corruption, this will now increase the cooldown of Nefarious Favor by 50% Word Whistle only. Again, a little bit of a nod to how often you're getting these sort of ranged boon corrupts. while you're on.
There's so many changes. Like people just playing the game, we're
notably,
gonna be
this
like,
is
"What the
tied
fuck is
specifically
going
to
on?"
corruption.
Like, there's so many changes.
In the future, not really for this update. I mean, obviously, there's Alacrity Scourge in all game modes, and we'll see if support Scourge.
I feel like you're just going to be spamming F1 now.
That is something we'd like to see in the future. We're not really
Because they're
expecting
going to
all
last
the tools
so
to
it's such a
be
short
there for this
duration. You're just
update,
going to be like
but in
F1,
a future
hit a
update,
button,
we would
F1,
like
hit a button,
to
F1,
really
hit a button.
establish
Scourge
as a viable
like
support build in
Scourge.
competitive modes,
No,
and there's-
no, Cal.
That's a big problem.
No, stop
Scourge
calling
things
it
that we make sure
Scourge.
aren't too prevalent on the support build, while it's also able to give support to allies. And so in that future,
I'll play
in
a
that future
dagger
world, we're
Scourge.
expecting Nefarious Favor to be
Give
an
that a
important
bash.
piece of the
It'll be
Scourge
fun.
support build, but we didn't want to just bump up the cooldown of Nefarious Favor at all times because it would then, just hurt the baseline functionality of this skill. So tying it in Path of Corruption, when it has this additional effect, it will be, rewarded with a higher cooldown.
Aegis is okay. It's not the best. Like, but you got Barrier. Don't forget.
All right, Harbinger.
All right, we got Change to Septic Corruption. This is a slight nod to, Harbinger damage is very high right now.
The
So
Engineer
it's,
third class.
DPS Harbinger
Third.
and
Delete specialize it.
Quickness Harbinger as well.
Oh,
So it's going to be a bit of a reduction to the overall damage.
Oh wait, they're going to change their elixirs,
then
aren't
Vile
they?
Vials, cooldown reduction trait,
Projectile stuff.
Like
Unblockable.
regrets
Wait, are they
reduction.
already unblockable?
more Vuln stacks. Very exciting. This is something we could potentially do
I
a
don't know.
larger rework to. The Vuln is like kind of thematic, as all these elixirs do apply conditions. So we bumped up the stacks to like 7. We could even bump it up a little bit higher. Wouldn't be surprised if we end up reworking this one down the
Ooh.
road because it's just maybe not exciting enough.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also see many cooldown reductions.
Is that all it does? It just gives vulnerability to elixirs right now?
Yeah.
Got even more elixirs.
I think they could revert it. It used to be
Necro changes,
slow,
one
which was kind of
Yeah.
interesting. I think if it was
Kind of
just 5
interesting.
vuln and like 2
Is there
seconds
even
of
a profession
slow,
left?
that could be
Yeah.
something like you're like, I'd get use out of that.
I thought
It
that
is
was
weird
what
that
I was
they've
about to do my outro.
add so many things to the game and just
Nothing important.
realize that there are so many skills and traits
but I
that
guess
just
we
don't
should
make
talk
sense
about
right now. But they're just
the-
like, well, look at it later.
Oh, okay. Mesmer is getting some changes.
And then if push comes to
There's
shove, just put a
also
days on it.
Chronomancer,
Give it a
Chronomancer.
5.
there's some Mirage
Chronomancer
updates.
Alacrity rework.
Yeah, nothing too
Ooh.
crazy. We will
Okay,
show off,
here's what I
some
wanted to
of
do.
the dagger
Just put
techniques
Alacrity on
for
Chrono,
Virtuoso.
and then give Mirage
We'll
quickness,
start off
and
with
you'll be
some,
okay.
As always, for
Everything will be fine.
All right, so
You wanna
Signal of
talk about
Humility.
Mesmer, Roy?
So MOA is going to have its cooldown lowered for PvE only. Very important to note there, just to make that a easier skill to take in PvE for breakbar damage. And then again,
I was gonna say
we talked about this
60-second
while
mower in
obviously, but
PvP
looking
would
at
be
some of these
awful.
range boon rips a little bit.
It'll be fun, though.
We're not changing the amount of boon rips at all in null field, but we are just lowering the range.
Oh.
So you do have to be a little bit closer to be able to get value from that skill. And then same sort of deal, lowering the range on Temporal Curtain, just to reduce the effectiveness of this skill at such a high range, especially given all of the sort of line skill tweaks you can do with it. And then Illusionary Membrane, reduced damage reduction from 10 to 5 in PvP only.
Okay.
Chaotic Persistence, reduced concentration and expertise in PvP.
a handful of nerfs to the Chaos Straight Line in PvP. We'll see a couple more on the next slide. And then a nice update here at the bottom. Escape Artist. This is kind of a pretty unused trait. This is mostly a nod to World vs. World, as giving an option that allows phantasms to strike enemies before dying in the game mode where 50 enemies might be attacking in AoE at all times. So phantasms will now have distortion when they're
What was
Kinda
it
good.
originally?
When you
Oh.
dodged, or when you gain stealth, you create a clone.
Chronomancer. So as we mentioned before, doing some reworks to Chronomancer and looking at some of the usability there for some boon builds. So stretch time has been reworked. Flow time now affects nearby allies. Grant alacrity to nearby allies when you summon a phantasm. Seize the moment. No longer ties the time to grant quickness. Instead grants quickness to nearby allies when you summon a phantasm. And then we got
Oh, they're still
multiple world
separated,
changes
that's
there.
good.
If you want to talk about the boon builds.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So it's
in a
spam
similar way,
phantasms
it's just
instead of
shifting
wells.
more of the
Yeah.
Okay.
alacrity of
Nor
onto
shattering. Just
core mechanics of
phantasms,
the
so you're really gonna go
profession. So it's,
phantasm.
shatters and phantasms. They
I guess
keep
all of the
their ability to
grandmasters now
hold
have to deal with
this build.
phantasms. It's
You don't
either
have to take
provide a
specific
boon
utility
on
slots in order
summon,
to get
or
access
when
to
you
these
shatter,
boons.
or when you summon a
We've
phantasm,
talked about this
it'll do it a
bunch of
second
times on the
time.
stream already, so
Yeah,
that's
and I guess
really
you could
just
take the phantasm utility traits if you
Hop
don't
into
want
the
to build too
Virtuoso
much
stuff.
into boon duration.
Yeah, because you have the defender and the
Yep, so we have
disenchanter.
some
Yeah.
I guess
We
we'll
could
talk
use
about
an
the
elite
interchange first,
phantasm.
because,
Why don't we have an
the
elite
top-
phantasm?
Top notes are all about defensive reductions.
What would it do? Would it
Even
just be a
PvE,
massive
we see that
dragon?
Virtuoso might have
You summon Desmina.
active
I don't know.
defense,
Glint.
especially with the introduction of distortion. I feel like that was correct, and we want.
Yeah, I guess
to
it
use
Wait,
that
it's stationary now?
distortion.
This is
But
what I recommended
1
when I
second
gave my
per
very
blade in
initial
PvE, it's now
preview.
going down to the 3
Wait, what
per
was that?
second
The
on the beta. The
And
third
the big change
ability,
here is
the
that
storm,
blade
is now a
turret
stationary.
blocks
Oh,
will
rather
actually
than
no longer
send
be a
out?
block. It will just
Yeah.
It will just occur instantly.
I kind
no
of like
longer
the send
channeled,
out.
and it will. The intent here
animation.
is
What
going
was
to be
that?
mostly the cleaving
Seconds.
AoE damage shatter now, because we obviously have a lot of single target stuff on all
Ooh,
of the.
I love that change. So
the
you can
bounce
actually
songs,
play
and now
ranged better.
Requiem, this will be
Oh,
like
the
the
bounce
PvE
out.
AoE,
Is the
deal
new? Is that
a
new?
decent amount of damage.
It'll
in
like
an area
fire
where
out, and then all three of them will retarget
just
to your
trying to
current
make sure that
target and
Virtuoso
fire
does
at
not
them.
have too
That
much
seems
This is
kind
like
of-
mechanically
and-
interesting.
Yeah, like how
I think
the tech
introducing this
behind
kind of
that.
AoE
Is there any?
cleave,
Is there another
obviously
ability
it still
that
already
does?
but now it is
I mean,
instant,
it's
not
it's like a
requiring channel.
reflect
A bit more
inside
flexible how
the.
you
It's a
use
reflect,
it
isn't
as a
it,
damage
on the
skill.
enemy? I guess in a way.
One last note on the defensive nerfs.
just, like,
is
does
blade
it,
durability, channel duration is
and then
reduced, which means you'll have less distortion.
I'm thinking about
It
the
will
tech they
give
would
you
have
the same
Yeah.
amount of blades
It's like a
over the
reflect,
shorter
almost.
interval,
It's
you'll
like
just have
a-
less distortion uptime.
built in there.
And now,
but with
hopping
the
into
damage
the
hitting the
dagger
target at
changes,
the
the
same
goal
time.
with these changes
Cool.
is to make them a bit more reliable. These skills a bit more reliable as damaging skills, especially in competitive modes where enemies.
Well, I guess the
move
bounce
a
on
lot more
Greatsword
frequently.
2
So blade
is
call.
similar to that as well. I
If
guess.
the original target
that
skill
comes
is in
off that
range,
target
then
and it
blades
bounces
will
to
lock
someone
onto
else.
the enemy. So I
But
think
it's
Roy
free
showed this on
targets
stream.
instead.
But
Yeah, that one's a
instead of just
bounce. This
returning
one's like
to the
a if
Mesmer
they're in
and
range
making,
still,
it's very
Ah,
difficult
yeah,
to
yeah,
it will
okay.
home in on
Even an
them.
outgoing shot is much more reliant on that shotgun, like hit all 3 projectiles as you throw them.
That looks good.
Now it's going to be much more reliable because you're going to throw it out, and then if there's a target there, the blades will kind of latch on and go at that target. So a very consistent return
Interesting.
damage.
I like
And kind
it.
of in a similar vein,
Same.
unstable blade storm. Instead of that super slow moving projectile, we've changed it to be a ground targeted spell. And this is going to have 2 damaging components. One is just going to be a pulse damage that happens obviously at the area, and it's still going to have that projectile component where periodically it will shoot projectiles at nearby enemies. And this really gives us the opportunity to balance it a little bit different per game.
I would have
mode,
liked
because
that
in
to have
World
been a
War, for
CC as
example,
well. That would have been
projectiles are
fun.
so
Knock
much
down on
less
those
cost.
guys.
We can load a lot more of
It's
the
only
No
'cause
more
of the anim-
CC.
It's only because the
pulse
animation
damage.
looks
So if
fun.
you're catching enemies standing in your blade storm, you do a lot more damage, and the projectile component will do a bit less damage because so much projectile hate, it just won't be super valuable. Whereas in like competitive in PvE for example or PvP for example, having less of the damage on the pulsing component and more of the damage in the projectiles, so that it's more reliable in hitting enemies in range of it. And overall, the damage should be about the same in PvE. Obviously, it's just going to hit a bunch of times, and so I believe the projectile damage has been, I believe it's the same actually, and then the pulse damage is just a fraction of the actual damage that the slow-moving projectile did because it will add up to the same number. Very exciting.
Very exciting indeed. All right. A couple more things here for Virtuoso. Twin Blade Restoration now always cleanses conditions when healing. First Blade will also grant Aegis, and Second Blade will grant Vigor. Second Force, reduce cooldown to 25 seconds in all game modes. Second Mind, increase bleeding duration. Just to kind of give a little bit more of an option.
Oh, in PvP
for a lot of
War of the
builds,
World.
specifically in competitive modes than Psychic Riposte, potentially. Make this feel a little bit of a stronger trait. And this trait, Psychic
And really
Riposte,
just make it a lot more reliable, because right now, Psychic Riposte, it's only ever going to do anything when you're actively being attacked.
Mhm.
No one tries to interact with you. The trait is actually not doing a whole lot because you have no attacks to block or evade.
Yeah.
So moving some of the value onto just every time you dodge is going to allow you to get access to that unblockable effect when you need it, and also just make a little bit more blade generation when you're not being attacked.
right.
So
But the
again,
overall...
goal is kind of improve the usability and really just the usability of this trait, and make sure that it does what does what you want it to when you want it to.
But I mean, that was a
More
counterplay,
on-demand
right?
action. Ideal.
All right, done with Virtuoso.
I guess the other
Let's
traits
begin.
didn't really have
So we
counterplay.
did just decide to put up the teaser one more time in case.
Wait, Mirage.
I don't actually know why we have the teaser here at the end.
There's
Don't
the
play with
thing
it.
on the
They're-
left.
But everything.
Oh, that's it.
I guess we
We did say that there
we
are
did say
Mirage
there were Mirage
updates.
changes, right? We can't actually keep
So-
lying about that.
We actually forgot. Someone screwed up the order of the slides. It was probably me. But yes, as we can see on this teaser, there was a Mirage mirror.
It's gonna be Alacrity, isn't it?
And so let's just no changes to Mirage mirrors actually. It was just trying to say it's showing that this light armor character on the screen is probably a Mirage because the Ranger can't make a Mirage mirror, the Spectre can't make a Mirage mirror. Pink Moa, maybe it should make Mirage mirrors. You know, they're both kind of a similar color palette.
But yes, all right. So,
but there is a Mirage here, and there are some changes to Mirage.
We've got some change. Well, we got a change to Mirage, really.
At least one change to Mirage.
Mirages can no longer dodge while under the effects of crowd control or immobilize. We felt that the ability to do so was a little bit too strong.
They're lying.
Great.
Wasn't that before? Didn't that happen before?
They're trolling us.
Okay, but seriously, let's just go to the next slide. We don't want to slow roll this too much.
Wait, are they being
It's already
serious?
been 2 hours so far, so
as part of a change that
still too long.
Dodges and this is a thing, and this is actually most of the chaos nerfs.
This is where they should make this a video.
Are also kind of a nod to Mirage because I'm going to give a spiel about Mirage.
Video and really like pump these things out a little bit.
Obviously, it's been like 3.5 years since we removed the second dodge from Mirage in competitive modes, and it's because the dodge mechanic,
so they added the
Mirage's
second
dodge
edge
mechanic being able to dodge
to PvP.
pretty much any time, you know, while using another skill, while crowd controlled, while immobilized. It was just so
DPS nerfs to Chaos
powerful.
Vortex.
Like it broke all the rules of how dodges are supposed to work. And you know, I guess that's kind of Mesmer's thing. They like to break the rules, but it did so in a way that was too powerful that we felt the solution at the time was to reduce the Mirage's endurance because we didn't really want to touch it in PvE. Obviously, the previous change where Mirage cannot dodge under the effects of crowd control or immobilize. This is a game-wide change.
They only did it to Vindicator.
We felt like
they brought the second dodge back, and then so they're doing it to Mirage now.
What the Mirage
makes sense.
mechanic is a little bit, and this felt like the best compromise because we did. I mean, we've been talking about this internally for a long time as well, and we've gone through like all sorts of crazy ideas that even involve just reworking the dodge mechanic entirely. But that felt like it would be very, very just overly disruptive to PvE. And we realized that this change will affect PvE a little bit, but it's kind of the best compromise where this is kind of just how dodges should work anyway. If you face tank the CC, maybe you shouldn't be able to dodge the incoming attack that follows up. So this does maintain a lot of the key Mirage.
But you only had one dodge, so that was the
skills. But if you get caught by an immo, get caught by a CC, you won't be able to dodge. And we are, you know, you see a couple of other.
I guess it keeps it more in line for like new Mirages, not to mess it up, but it also takes away a skill for experienced Mirages. I don't know.
I don't play it enough to care. So
I think it's just fine. It keeps everything normal.
It was overpowered being able to dodge when CC'd.
Yeah, it's annoying because you lock them down and then
hedging a little bit against the power level that we've seen with Mirage in the past. And going forward, we do want Mirage to be playable. And obviously the goal
going forward, we want Mirage to be playable.
Mirage is that
wouldn't this be
where Mirage is a viable
okay, no, never mind.
High bar there.
But at the same time, we don't want it to be at the level that it used to be. Obviously, the game's changed a lot. And it may or may not have been as dominant as it was if we just kind of came in with only the changes to the dodge. So we are maybe overshooting a little bit, but we'd rather see Mirage be a little bit undertuned coming in and give us the opportunity to bring it up over time, as opposed to just dropping Mirage into the game and it becomes an oppressive, dominant force, which hopefully with all of these changes...
Hey, you don't want to do balance like you did like 4 years ago? Come on,
as with all the other things, but maybe even more so, this is probably the change we're keeping the closest eye on with the changes in this patch, just because it's a pretty significant shift. There's obviously a lot of preemptive nerfs or preemptive reductions to Mirage with the addition of the second dodge, and our goal is not to make Mirage unplayable with 2 dodges. So we will make some follow-up adjustments as needed, and those will probably even come outside of the usual balance update cycle. If this will go live, people start playing with Mirage again.
There's worry about this. You can tell they're worried about this very much. So body language when they're talking.
You can keep moving and you can still do damage.
For anyone in the chat who may have made a character name that is a meme about one dodge Mirage,
you have to delete the character.
You can definitely go purchase a name change console
or that
Black Lion store.
Those are available.
And then 1 month later, they change it back, and then you have to get another name change contract.
Increase the earnings of Guild Wars 2 by $12.
Yeah, we have
Balance changes influencing the gem store. Who would have thought?
Waiting in the wings. It's probably for the best. We've been at this for.
Wait, that was it?
45 minutes.
Close to 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed we couldn't get 2 hours. I think maybe I talked a little bit too fast in some cases, and you didn't.
Right? Talk too
What about the
fast.
mirror?
So why don't we just hang out for a little?
You
No.
just hang out for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
They didn't change anything with
wrap
Mirage
things up.
mirrors.
Obviously,
I want to get on with the podcast.
Oh, they're just saying there's a Mirage in the picture.
As
Yeah, they
always,
just did it to
forum
troll.
post, will be coming after.
Or
the-
they are
No,
trolling
they were
us.
saying that they changed Mirage.
But there are other things to
Oh, yeah,
indicate
that's
a
true.
mirage than like a very niche element of
be able to do so.
It's
the
the class
spec that
mechanic of
doesn't-
Mirage.
It's not necessarily the class mechanic. It can summon things that give them Mirage Cloak. The class mechanic is the ability to dodge and attack and incur an ambush attack. But mirrors are like a separate pickup thing that feel like they're just all they do is give you another Mirage Cloak.
That is all I will be
I would,
doing, so
and
please make sure you-
they
I'm
really
not,
missed
I'm
an
not too upset
opportunity.
that
yeah.
the teaser
Feedback
image
you can
was
for it.
slightly misleading.
It was just, I was hoping for them to finally do something interesting with the trait that interacts with the Mirage mirrors and allow them to grant AoE alacrity or AoE quickness so that it's not just you have to take a staff to provide a boon.
Things that you saw on this stream today that are not in the patch notes. This stream is the most updated version, essentially, of the patch notes, and there will also be just additional changes that come in the final release notes that will go live with the update itself.
Right. Yeah. So if there's something on the forum that wasn't, or excuse me, if there was something on the stream that is not on the forum, whatever was on the stream is how it is going to be. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So I
Any
think we
last
can wrap
the
it up.
wiki
words
up?
there, Cal?
Last words.
Last
Well,
fi-
thanks everyone who stuck with us the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back, and I always go back and watch the VOD to see like all the comments because we don't actually read the stream or read the comments while we're live. Some people believe this is pre-recorded, but it actually is not. This is a live
I
stream.
could go put a shoe on my head, but I don't think anyone really wants to see that. So.
That only works if someone in chat says put shoe on head.
Oh right, I can't.
It's like, what?
So.
We're
out of luck.
Yeah. So unfortunately,
If it was recorded, it would be better.
for sticking with us.
If it was,
This
probably.
is probably the longest one of these we've done for a long,
That's
long time.
the 5D chess though.
I mean, I remember back in
Make
the
it
day when we
just
did. I'm just gonna start rambling about
rambly
random stuff now.
enough so that you
I really
think it's
should never
5.
ask you if you have any final words. I should just do the outro because then we'll just.
I don't
we'll
know
actually
if
we'll be stuck
anyone
here for-
remembers.
Good
like,
lord.
when we did the specialization update before Heart of Thorns, and there was a balance preview stream for that, and it was like a 5-hour balance preview.
It was
We went
long.
over like every single trait line for
before
every
Heart of
single profession.
Thorns? You mean?
Before Heart of Thorns, the specialization update when we reworked all the trait lines.
Right, yeah. I thought you were talking about the End of Dragon streams.
No.
I think they do the
'cause
same
that was literally,
outro
like, a
every
5-hour
time. Like this is the recorded bit.
And you know, one day we'll get
They just
Roy
stick
and
it in
I-
at the end.
We have some plans.
Yeah.
To...
I mean, yeah. We'll read.
Uh,
I'll work on reading slow.
yeah.
All right. I'm gonna
Yeah,
stop
anyway,
Cal
we're
from
gonna-
talking
let-
anymore.
let's sign
and I'm
off.
gonna actually do
Good
the
call.
outro. Thank you very much for watching. As always, give us your feedback. We'll be reading it. And we hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Again, this was for the June 27th balance patch upcoming. And yeah, until next time, we'll see you all in the mists. Have a lovely day. Take it easy.
Why are the mists?
Have a good
I don't PvP.
I was gonna say like the mists. Okay. Why not Tyria?
Areas in this.
Tyria.
I
Oh,
mean, they did a lot about World v World and how it's going to affect, and they seem to
They
have
did.
a little bit of a focus on that, don't they?
They sure do.
But it's strange because in the lead up to these balance patches, they're like, oh, we're positioning them more into the PvE side rather than just competitive updates. They said they wanted to do that, but maybe they just really like competitive.
Mm.
I am wondering where to start.
Where are the patch notes?
Are they putting them on?
I got a copy paste all.
Is
Hold on.
it in the?
Where do I type
Do you
stuff?
want to? Do you
Where
want
do
to
you
take?
find it? The forms are bad.
Do you want to take a 2-minute rest break and come back, or do you want to keep going?
Oh, I found the
We keep
preview.
going. I gotta check out
Yeah, we keep
in
going.
less than an hour, let's say.
That's fine. Yeah, we
Yeah.
won't be going too much longer. I'm just kind of we can do a roundup and talk quickly about Dragon Bash and
Okay.
yeah.
Dragon Bash.
not just specifically, but like, you know, the patches, there was the
that's all
ally
we're talking
effects and
I thought today we were just gonna watch this and then
not even talk about it.
and just
yeah,
talk
no,
about
that's
Dragon
what
Bash.
we're doing. But there was like a really big patch this week, which was quite influential to the game.
Yeah, Dragon Bash.
Allies, the ally stuff.
Which is broken, but it was good.
Oh, I mean, loads of people love it. Loads of people are loving all the patches this week. There's loads to talk about it. You know. Fine, it doesn't matter then. No one cares. Just Creep doesn't. Okay. I like Dragon Ball.
So I would love to talk about this balance patch, but
Yes.
unfortunately I stopped listening after the Spectre changes.
Yeah,
I
really
stopped listening
sad.
after Engineers. Did everyone's got like, let's just do a general gist kind of coverage. How are we feeling after that show?
Personally assaulted.
Because of the one build.
They watched your
Because of
video.
the
They
one
said,
build that got deleted. And
rid of
frankly,
this.
it's probably going to be good for the class, but I'm still upset.
It's good for the class, not good for boots. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm really happy overall. I think this is a more positive balance patch preview. The change for Ranger and Warrior positioning the boons of Alacrity and Quickness
that was
onto elite
necessary.
specializations is extremely necessary and very smart. I'm just a little confused by what they're doing with Necro a little bit. But it's weird because I like some of the updates in their
Have to
core
see how it
support,
plays.
but then also like Scourge, I'm like, oh, but like, why are you producing the baseline shades? Not
That
even
was
if you're
also-
just taking the trait. It's not like the Alacrity trait reduces your shade duration to 8 seconds. It's every shade now is 8 seconds. So like DPS, Condi, support, goodbye. You can't have them up.
I'll also say that it was an interesting quote unquote implementation of the quickness to Deadeye.
Yeah. I forgot
that-
about that.
That was yeah, I don't know if that's what I would have done, but we'll see how it works. And we'll see how it fits into general gameplay. Like, yeah, you could have a quickness Deadeye. I don't know if it'll be that strong.
I
We'll
think
see.
it would be if they kept the implementation of it applies at the target and around you as well. But they seem to be like removing the necessity of having a target. So at that point, just like increase the actual radius around the character to like 900. Like really allow them to play at
Wherever
their
they
range
want.
thresholds
Yeah, you could
without
be a
having
hand
to be
kegger
like.
and still give quickness.
Honestly, I think that'd be really cool. That would create a really interesting, at least for a very specific encounter. But overall, I think like a lot of
Gives
these
you
range
something more to
thresholds
do than
should
just-
be expanded.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about? So think about like how they're now attacking all the removing of, I guess sorry about that. All those cooldowns on like specific utilities as well. Like think of engineer, because there's a great example.
I noticed that the first possible instance you have to talk about these balance changes, you try to get us to start talking about engineering.
I mean, there's no reason for that. But like, you know, I mean, we could spread it to all of the others as well. But like,
Okay, so what do they do to engineer again? Let's take a look. Like I said,
No,
I stopped
I'm-
listening after Spectre, but let's talk about engineer.
Well, specifically, I'm talking more about, you know, they reduce cooldowns to all the things where, so they've removed the traits
wiki's
where
up.
you reduce all the cooldowns for, say, you know, elixirs or gadgets or, you know, different consecrations, etc. Like all of those traits are gone, so you can basically you've got other options when you want to run like elixirs. You don't have to take alchemy. You can take something else if you want. You don't necessarily.
but
you would
it
just
always
go HDH. You had to go HDH
Sure.
if you went elixirs.
Sure.
That's
So
silly.
it always boils down to, if you want to give this boon, you're going to have to do something, right?
Yeah.
So originally it was giving super speed or casting wells or casting spirits.
Mhm.
Now it's something else. And the question is that something else going to be something you enjoy doing? We'll find out when we have to do it. For Scrapper now, what is it? It's you do combos, right?
Yeah. Well,
So that might be more difficult to do for some people.
Well,
it could be more fun to do.
You don't have to take HGH in alchemy as well. If you do go into alchemy, and you can have more defense. Well, you can also go with more condition removal, because HGH used to be, as an example for engineer, used to be condition removal and cooldown reduction for elixirs in one go, and then they split it. Well, they didn't split it. They gave you the condition removal into boons on the middle Grandmaster trait on alchemy. I can't remember the name, but it was just like this annoying thing which they changed, and now it's just like, also they're unblockable as well now, which is great. There's some really like good from those trait changes. They have done changes to different skills as well, like the utilities specifically on engineer as well. Like, you know, I just think generally this is my favorite part of the patch.
So you're talking about the cooldown reduction getting removed from all the traits.
Basically, like everything, like for all classes. Could
be good. I mean, it is in some ways the ultimate power creep in the game.
Yeah,
but
true.
But
it gives you more flexibility in builds, I think.
Sure it does.
Whether
it does leave some traits in a weird spot. Those traits that used to have the cooldown reduction, and I think they should, like, they didn't address any of them pretty much in this patch.
I don't know. I'm gonna see if I can find HGH. The trait no longer reduces the cooldown of elixir skills. So what does it do now?
Whatever it did before.
But that was the main reason we took it.
There are certain traits that now feel almost completely useless, like the consecration one, where it's just consecrations last a little bit longer.
It granted might as well, of course it did. And on the reduced recharge time.
But it definitely doesn't seem to be a Grandmaster trait anymore.
No, well, yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely...
I know the recharge time is built in now.
They've done a lot of things in this patch. Some of them are probably going to be great. Some of them are very necessary. Some of them I'm not happy about. I will say again, but
yeah,
I do find it weird that they've done so much for this patch, but they're leaving things hanging still. Like they don't want to address the things that they realize are issues.
Oh, our cameras are shut off.
Yeah, no, it happens every time I go to find. To a thingamajig.
Oh. I was like,
it happens to you in the call as well? Or are you talking about on the stream?
Oh, on the stream.
Oh, yeah, it happens from time to time. There's a weird thing going on with Discord. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess they gotta leave stuff to still be balanced. to you know, like, I'm gonna work on this next. You know, they can't do everything in one go, I guess.
They did a lot of changes.
I think that this is a teeing up patch. They've tweaked and homogenized stuff and fiddled at the edges and left some gaping holes because they're going to fill it with whatever we're getting this summer, which is imminent, I think. It's also interesting that they have to really, because they've dropped elite specializations, they really have to show the community that they can be incredibly dynamic and offer very diverse gameplay with whatever the hell is coming next. So I feel like this is like they're starting the foundation.
I don't think that some of the gaping holes they left are necessarily being planned to be filled in the expansion. Like leaving some traits with nothing really to them and still being Grandmasters, I don't think that's something that's going to be filled in the expansion. I think that's just something that has to be changed eventually when they take a look at those again.
Yeah, I would say they probably just haven't gotten to it this patch, but I do feel like this is so large and there's so many changes here that this is like, we're doing everything we need to do now so that by the time the expansion comes around, sometime soon, hopefully, when they're adding something or they're unlocking, as they mentioned, restrictions and opening up build possibility, like, it seems like
they'll address it
foundation.
through those. They might address things that they need through the traits that don't have a purpose anymore.
Yeah, they've done this first. They'll do any bug fixes later, some slight tweaking, but then maybe whenever we get the expansion is really where we're going to see a lot more growth in terms of build compositions or, trait choices, what you can take as a weapon. But I was definitely happy to see how large of balance patch this is and what it's going to be like. It feels very like Heart of Thorns, when Heart of Thorns was first launching and they did their entire specialization rework. Granted, not as big, but it certainly feels like there's something for every specialization and every profession here, to some extent, other than Guardian. But
other than Guardian's got nothing. Yeah, I mean, honestly, what this build does is it fills out the class roles for each profession. So the two glaring things were that Ranger and Warrior couldn't get Alacrity and Quickness added to them through elite specs, because in the core specs they had Alacrity and Quickness on the different one, and so they had to change that. So they've done that. They've also added two other professions, like Thief and what else got it? Oh yeah, Scourge, Thief and Necro.
Scourge, Bladesworn.
Bladesworn. Well, yeah, Bladesworn. Well, that was part of the Warrior thing I was talking about. Yeah. They gave them things that they were lacking, and now we're at a point where I think almost every class has all the boons that they were lacking. Is there anything that doesn't have anything yet?
No, I think every profession now has access to Quickness and Alacrity.
Both Quickness and Alacrity on a different elite spec.
Decision of an elite spec.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, some classes are still missing healing as a role.
Mesmer, Warrior.
Mesmer, mostly Mesmer, and Warrior, kind of.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, well, I guess we'll see if they'll add that at some point. Maybe, maybe not. It won't be through an elite spec, though, because it does seem like they're making it so that we don't need them in the future.
They could do, like, for Mesmer, an inspiration trait line rework, where they really just dig deep into what a support could be for a Mesmer. Because there are some traits in there which are a little bit old and could probably be reworked a little bit. So they could just do normal trait line reworks if they ever felt like it.
Yeah. I mean, some of it does feel a little bit ham-fisted, like a little bit. That doesn't. It's not elegant the way some of the boons were given to different classes, but
yeah. Serpent Siphon now provides Aegis on top of Barrier and Regen? What the hell? Yeah. Like, why? I don't think every class needs, like, Aegis. I don't think every class needs access to every single boon, I would say. Because there are, functions where, while it didn't have access to Aegis, Scourge has a lot of access to Barrier, which is another extremely important defensive feature, where it kind of... I guess in certain situations, like, one hits would go through Barrier, but, like, I don't know. They're usually mechanics and, to get over that in terms of a player reaction in a raid setting or whatever.
Do you think that this is their attempt to loosen up the kind of some of the strict sort of group dynamics which are required for some encounters, especially if you're trying particularly effectively? Do you think they're trying to just open up the field for more diversity so that people don't feel locked into different?
I think that eventually that's probably what they're trying to do. I think the issue is that whether this is the first step, because in order to open up diversity, you have to give the possibility of different classes to have those roles. But the next step is making them as viable as what is currently the meta, right? Like, if your Berserker Quickness giver is not good, people are still not going to run it, even though it can technically do it, So it's the first step to that, I think, for Fornax.
It's the first step. I still have issue with how they've tied in Alacrity and Quickness into the roles of Guild Wars 2, be it healer and DPS, as we don't really have a tank, and how in certain situations, if you're playing as a druid and you're trying to look for a group, they need a Quickness healer. You literally cannot go and play that role. So as Guild Wars 2 has progressed, it was first, its philosophy was that you don't have to switch a different class to accomplish a role, and now it really has become that because of the way that Quickness and Alacrity have influenced the game. I think the fact that you can,
the fact that you can streamline and combine healing and Quickness, or healing and Alacrity, and that not all professions can do that still. and in a good way, that does, that means that they're still going to have to make some tweaks in order to give everybody that option.
I'd much rather have it to where all healers give alacrity, but some healers are a little bit better and they balance it that way, rather than some healers have alacrity, some have quickness, and then you are literally split between what you can
I
play.
think, for balance purposes, that might be good, but I still feel like that makes the game less interesting.
I think we're putting too much weight on what yellow icon it can provide, because I think the interest doesn't come from what boon it can provide, but how they do it, how they interact with healing. If it's ally targeting, group targeting, barrier versus raw healing. I'm really tired of this boon conversation, but it's just now woven into the fabric of Guild Wars 2. And so I've just gotten used to it over the years. But I think what Fornex was saying, I think they're doing the best that they can to increase build flexibility and build diversity. But from an outside looking in, there are just certain situations and certain decisions where I'm like, but that inherently cuts off certain builds, like a good portion of classes, depending on the build composition, because it's not uniform.
You know what it means? It means that in order to balance this properly, I think making it has to be electric healer and not heal quickness healer. I think that's a conversation that does need to be had. I think in order to properly balance it, they've taken the first step, make it so that one elite spec gives quickness, one elite spec gives alacrity. I think what it means, though, is that the healing option should be in the core specs, so that it could be tacked on to either of the elite specs.
And they kind of already do. But it's strange because elite specs wildly change the profession mechanic.
Yeah,
and the profession mechanic is integral to really what role you're playing, because depending on what profession mechanic you have, and they also then need to buff out the weapons to make sure that that weapon's identity really solidifies it in that healing position or damaged position. And the core specializations, they already seek to do that, because there's usually a damaging trait line, a Condi trait line / precision, a defensive one, a healing one, and then the profession mechanic trait line. Those are your core specs. So they could just flesh those out more.
Yeah, they have to make it so that they interact properly with both of the boon giving trait lines.
Yeah. But one change in terms of the support playstyle that I actually am really excited to play would be Druid and Spectre. I think, despite the sadness that we all experience for boots,
we all experience
in the elimination of the shade step, I think that this is a smart decision to have alacrity sharing in a more active way by utilizing the profession mechanic rather than just spamming wells. Same thing for Druid, rather than just spamming spirits. It's something that's ingrained when you trait for it into the actual profession mechanic of Celestial Avatar. So I'm excited to play that, just because I feel like it'll be a bit more organic.
I mean, and for the Spectre, although it does completely kill my current build, it does. So the fact that you spread barrier with your scepter skills now, that could be used well with Rotwall Venom to give you a nice boost to DPS instead of the way I was using Rotwall Venom.
To curve that.
What do you mean?
Because it could break some stuff theoretically.
No. The max DPS you could get from Rotwall Venom is like 5,000.
But that was just on one target. Now this will be on 5 targets.
No. That was with 5 targets, because my build, when it broke barrier,
AoE barrier people.
When I did AoE barrier, it gave Rotwall Venom to all the people it gave barrier to.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
So, and the max DPS you get from that is like 5,000. So it's not going to be that busted, but it'll be a nice little boost.
If you're playing a support Spectre with your Scepter, you really aren't bringing a lot of damage anyway. So that'll also help it in terms of picking it for a group situation, is that you'll also see a little bit of an increase in your passive damage through your barrier application. So actually, no, I like that. At first I was a little worried, but you've soothed me. Thank you.
And I think the new trait, even though I hate it, will be good for support as well, because giving the boons that you get from your shade form, you get originally it was one targeted and yourself stability, but you'd be giving stability to 5 targets now. That'd be pretty good. And you already get stability, I think, from the well, so you might be able to give almost 100% stability uptime, and you'll probably be. And if you do the whole thing with giving people stealth as well, you'd probably be able to give 100% protection uptime on top of that. So it would be very good, I think. But it would be a lot of work to do that.
And another element of Spectre someone had mentioned in chat, I think putting it on the profession mechanic is smart, but I would have liked to, and I would like to see Alacrity just put onto Well of Bounty, because Spectre, you're not getting any access to quickness at all, other than technically you share out quickness on your dual skill with Scepter Pistol, which is weird, but I think having one ability, because that ability is essentially just a boon button anyways, I think putting it onto one well would be fine.
I also think it's necessary just to start the encounter, because you need what's it called? Generation of that life force is going to be very difficult, I think, to upkeep.
Not if you use dagger.
And it's dependent.
That's why. That's one reason.
And it's also dependent on where your marked ally is. So if they're off doing something else, but I guess you can just easily swap to a different marked target. I think having one ability where you are in control of where the Alacrity is a little bit more, just add like 5 seconds of Alacrity onto Well of Bounty and you'll be fine. I think that'll be like one good buffer skill.
There's loads of melee ways to increase your life force as well, and everything like spectral armor. You got the dagger now.
For thief.
Oh, you're talking about Spectre, sorry.
Thief. Shadow Shroud.
Oh, okay, sorry. We went with shrouds and stuff. I completely didn't listen for a moment.
I missed that change.
I was like, what?
But like, that dagger was a Spectre weapon now.
I mean,
if Spectre got spectral skills instead of wells, that would have been more thematic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true actually. So there you go. That's what I was looking into.
Arena, you're missing out. You're missing the prime opportunity.
Oh, that's so weird. Yeah. I like.
Yeah. Hire me. I'll give you all good ideas. I don't know how to code, but you can teach me.
I feel so bad. You've all got these high ideals and insights, and I'm just thinking, oh my god, this is so good. I don't have to keep my spirits alive when we decide that we're not going to pull immediately. That's my whole takeaway from the Druid, that I don't have to manage my spirits. That's it for my raids.
And do you play a lot of Druid?
I play a lot of Druid. That's what I raid on.
So how do you feel about the new? Yeah, how do you like the new Alacrity changes?
I like that. I feel like because I'm quite a nervous player and because I'm quite a new player, I just take all the spirits so that I can make sure that I can pump it out, apart from when I have to do like Gorse and we do this strat where I have to entangle everybody. Sorry, this is basic bitch stuff. And I would like to be able to actually have a bit more diversity in what I bring, whilst continuing to be able to supply the healing that I'm there for and the alacrity that I'm there for. So I'm very happy that it's going to be coming from my celestial avatar now, and then it'll give me the ability, for example, to be able to take kick away skills for when we're doing the Veil Guardian and things like that, because that always gets quite tangled in our group because we're quite new.
Yeah, Glyph of Tides. We can take Glyph of Tides again and like
pop things away rather than Scourges accidentally dragging everything to the group and murdering everybody. But that's just
This is true.
Yeah.
Another, the spirit changes. I was honestly just kind of surprised by that. I'm a little surprised that they don't last very long.
I love how spirits
really
have just slowly over time just been less existing in the world. Like, first of all, like, spirits stood there, then you traded them to follow you, then the petting zoo happened in PvP, so they got rid of that. Then they slightly made them more translucent, and now they just stand in one place. And now they basically don't exist in the game. And I'm just like slowly over time.
I think if they were just like 6 or 8 second banners where like they persist and pulse out their boons, and then that would have been fine. Where
one of them does.
It's so funny though.
The might generating one stays there for a few seconds.
Does it stay there a bit longer?
Now.
That's good.
They just look like signet.
They do an effect.
Yeah. They just do an effect. Like that's the only thing that I don't really like about these
It
kinds
does
of
have
things.
an active. It is a bit differentiated because it has like a bigger active, and then you can trade it to
that's
do it
true.
twice. So you basically are casting a spell, and then your spirit lingers and
I think it's
does
the
some more
thematic,
supportive stuff.
the thematic kind of more visual thing of it, where I'm like,
But the question is, do you have to let it linger?
do you have to? I don't know. Do you
Is that a
have
song?
to? Yeah, there's a song.
Oh, crew.
Groovy Groove.
Oh.
It's a very good song. It's the Cranberries, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
You must have heard of the Cranberries.
It was a Tudor band. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Tudor band.
if it isn't
Yeah.
Ice Spice, I don't know
Classical
what it
music.
is.
It's not Justin Bieber.
One thing
Sorry.
about the Druid that I'm actually disappointed in.
Oh, there's only one thing. Okay.
Well, it's a collection of a few changes.
Okay.
The condition play style. They
Wait,
said they're
that's
going to
not
bring
one
like a DPS variant to Druid, and
The
what we
Grandmaster,
got was the Grandmaster,
One
and I
stack
guess
of burning or something.
okay, these names are brilliant and so good. Blood Moon, Natural Balance, Eclipse. I feel like I'm playing a Druid in WoW, and I kind of love that. But Blood Moon, it dazes enemies when you go into avatar form, and you bleed foes on a mob and when you disable them. I don't like that. I don't like when you are
You
being
remove a
very
lot, though.
control or like defensive and you're actively like killing enemies. I think that play style, especially in Druid back in the Ancient Seeds days, it just doesn't feel great to play against. I guess in PvE it doesn't really matter all too much. I mean,
Oh
I
no,
guess
yeah,
it
it
kind of
sucks to play
does.
against.
In PvE, I guess it does matter because like you want to be threatened by bosses or like mobs that are enemies, and if you're just dazing them all the time, you're not really playing an interactive situation. So even in PvE, I do criticize that a bit more. I think they could have applied the bleeding on something else. I honestly think Blood Moon should have, like the very first trait line in the minors, it should have just been Celestial Avatar abilities no longer heal but deal damage, and like it's like a complete shift. It's a complete flip into another form of Celestial Avatar, because the bottom line really is just solidifying it into that conditioned play style. So why not just like make those interesting decisions to do that rather than like, I don't know. I would have done it differently. So, and also the Eclipse Grandmaster, they're not really damaging conditions other than on the 5th ability. It's just like vulnerability, immob, chill, poison.
There was a stack of burning in there, wasn't it? Was there
I
burning?
don't think there was. I don't
Well,
think
not
it's
this
been updated.
one stack of burning. It's not going to do it much, is it?
Yeah, it's not going to do a lot. So I was a little disappointed by like when they mentioned the DPS version of Druid. I'm like, it's not really DPS. It's more so just like you get a few more conditions that you can
Also,
apply.
DPS of
every
Druid
so
has
often.
existed for a long time in PvP anyway, so it's like it's just an additional thing. It just depends on the context and the mode you're playing in, right? Like, what is DPS? Like, DPS is like full-on damage. Like, that's not going to be used in raids, maybe. Although maybe you're used for a bit of extra damage, but you're not going to take that trait because you take something else because you're a healer, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
is that just more because Druid just doesn't have that extra like that extra trait for PvP in Wild World? I mean,
Was it
know.
what is that what is that trait if you're a healer druid, you're not taking those traits anyway, right?
no,
No.
not the damage
But I
one.
guess you could technically be a low damage alacrity DPS.
But it's like
Why bother?
at that point it's nothing exciting in terms of changing your mechanic to shift you into different mindset, because you're still going to be healing. You're still going into Celestial Avatar to provide pretty strong heals.
Yeah.
But you're not like, ooh, instead of a lunar thing to heal
You're not like,
allies, you're
ooh.
like, yeah, I
We
don't
need
know. I
more
think
ooh. There you go.
it
But they
should
will
it
be-
should
I
have
mean,
just flipped
They will be
it.
very annoying in PvP.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm
Very
talking. That's what I'm
annoying,
talking about.
but-
Like, it's going to be really annoying. It's going to be the worst.
But like to avoid
It's like Ellie.
annoyance. To avoid annoyance and actually adhere to one of their pillars of philosophy, which is purity of purpose, like
Yeah.
just have it to our Blood Moon, the very first trait in that bottom line. If you're wanting to play a damaged druid, you have to take that because you'd only be taking that anyways. To just have it flip Celestial Avatar into this like almost like Tyrande Night Warrior, like damaging lunar abilities.
Oh god, that would be amazing. Yeah,
I don't know.
the balanced druid in WoW is actually beautiful, really thematic, and it has some interesting, if a bit clunky, game mechanics, and I would love to see a version of that. Just like, because it is a complete. The druid is naturally in World of Warcraft. It's a dot healer. So you dot up, you put ground effects down, people can stand in the ground effects to be healed, and you can dot up, and it's lots of healing over time. And the balance is all about the arcane side of things. So it flips completely into a damaged focused spellcaster. And I would love that. I would love for them to just do it properly, to not piddle about at the edges, and just actually give it a proper, terrifying druid, dark side of the moon type of druid.
No piddling about everyone.
Because the name's Blood Moon Eclipse, and it's like they're really evocative, but like the actual effects are just like, well, it just feels a little wishy-washy.
Yeah.
But I think one way they could have also, I actually would have liked to have seen this for baseline druid, is Cosmic Ray. That auto attack is really bad. But now it's a larger radius, so
oh my god,
it'll feel better. But I think if it was just enemy target and ally target functionality, where if you had an enemy, it would deal damage to them and apply like a second of burning, and if you target an ally, it's a more reliable heal on them and around them as well, so that you wouldn't even need to like actually trade for it. You could go and play a druid out in the open world, and you go into Celestial Avatar and kind of have this cool like cosmic burning type playstyle. I don't know.
Good idea.
They could even change up the sound on the staff, because it sounds like a periscope. It sounds like a submarine going down. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know.
I have a question.
I like that noise more though.
You know the change to Shade Step that I really don't like?
Yeah.
Are you talking about your build again?
No, it's not my build. It's just in general. It doesn't mention, because that besides breaking your barrier and giving it to your allies, which was part of the build, it also made it so that when you steal on an ally who's downed, it revives them. Does it no longer do that?
No, Boots, I'm sad with you now. No.
And they also changed Shallow Grave, the one that says if an ally who's tethered to you takes lethal damage, it prevents that damage. That's gone too.
Yeah, and now
now Spectre can't revive people?
Siphon to transfer conditions to target enemy or remove conditions from the Spectre and that ally. I think Shallow Grave should be like the res one and the Condi transfer.
Yeah.
To at least have that option.
But it doesn't have it anymore.
But now it's just kind of like a weird Grandmaster. Wait, is Shallow Grave a Grandmaster?
No, that's a...
Oh, it's just a major.
Adept. That's an adept, actually.
Adept.
Yeah.
Oh.
But no, Shade Step, yeah.
Oh. I'm a little sad about that.
Very upset, actually.
I'm right there with you, Boots, now. Wow.
Yeah.
Because that was actually really fun. It was very powerful, but you only could do it on one target, and it really rewarded you for having really good allied target skills and practicing that, because you got a really strong res.
Yeah.
But now you're like, oh.
And it didn't always res completely, because,
No, it was like 35 or 40. Yeah, 33%, which is really good. So if they first go down, you could get them back up instantly.
If you're fast enough, yeah.
But like, it really rewarded you for tunneling into that, like, I'm going to keep this person alive playstyle. So you'd be vulnerable yourself. You couldn't deal damage.
Well, it's gone. Maybe. Apparently, it's gone.
And traversing dust no longer granting alacrity. I think they could pop that into Well of Bounty, but...
Cool.
Any other standouts? This is like it's a lot. It's a smorgasbord.
It is a lot. That's the thing.
It's a charcuterie board.
When is this coming out? Is this next week? No.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
We'll have a lot more to talk about in 2 weeks.
I think 3 weeks actually. The 27th.
I'm confused with this format. I'm confused. So I'm not hugely enamored with these kind of granular detail stuff. I think it can be a bit dry, right?
It is dry.
Even for people who are really interested, it can be a bit museum-esque. Okay,
if you've got ADHD, I feel like these streams are really hard to stick with. I feel like it's difficult.
My question is, right? why not release a series of videos going into the for each build, so that people can drill down into what they want and what they're interested in, and then have a live stream answering the community's questions about each of these things. And you could then have, we're going to have 15 minutes on this and 15 minutes on that, and then we'll talk about, you've got everything's out there, you come out with us with all the questions so that we can talk about the design ethos, and so that they can have more of a conversation and interaction with the community, as well as providing information in a form which is palatable for people to receive.
They do. There's a few things. I get why they do it, but also I feel like you're right. Like there is a better way to do this, and it's like their patch notes overall. You know, the wiki. Everyone goes to the wiki. If you're that interested in the patch notes, you go to the wiki to look at them, because there's more access to the skills. There's links. It's really, really great. It's really well done. The way they do this is a problem across the board with every like MMORPG though. But places that do it very well, for places like MOBAs, they actually have, like League of Legends example, when they change patch, when they have like a big patch and they have changes, they have the ability, actual icon, they have images, and they make it a little bit more engaging. So like that, I think would be really important. I think it would be good if they had, like, you know, if they did pre-record it and then they had video footage coming up in there more as well. That would be great. A 2-hour stream of that is really like tiring, and it gets boring, and there's so much banter in between, and I'm just like, I don't care. Like,
hey, don't knock the banter.
No, the banter's okay, but like it's not giving it's cool for a fun like live stream, like that kind of atmosphere. Like that's where the banter's good, but you want to convey and promote information to your community. The best way to do it is in bite-sized chunks. We live in 2023. We're not here for 2 hours of like a long live stream. That's good to have on its own, but something needs to accompany it.
I could only concentrate for 30 seconds at a time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but there are many folks that can't only do that. That's the problem. Like it's just like a real thing.
Well, everyone reacts to things differently. So like everyone's right here and everyone's wrong here. But I don't think that this. Granted, there's a lot of patch notes, but I don't think that this stream constituted a 2-hour runtime. I think because most of it was just slides of them like showing what abilities were reduced in terms of their cooldown. We don't need to know all that granular detail.
No.
Leave that for the patch notes for people who really want to go into it and see what cooldown has been changed.
Do the major stuff, the main big stuff.
Go to the major mechanical changes. Like for Elementalist, that'd probably be the Catalyst orb changes and quickness application. They showed off some of the dagger stuff, which was good. And then literally go over to Mechanist, or to engineer and show off the rifle
just
stuff.
do an engineer patch.
Wait, no, they didn't touch rifles. I don't think there really was anything to really show off for engineer, which is kind of sad. But then like go over to, I don't know, Guardian and like show off. There wasn't much to show off there either.
There was nothing that good for them. Like, what's the point?
But
like,
if there isn't anything to show off, then just don't show it off.
Yeah, don't do it.
So like go to the major ones like Druid, Spectre, Scourge. They didn't even show off Scourge. And the shades and the shade duration change, or the alacrity application, or the trait lines for that. They should have showed Scourge, but they showed like a couple other things and just slides that, in my opinion, were not essential to my balance or viewership experience.
Exactly. And it would get people interested in those changes more that don't play those classes. Because when you're like, this, for me, this is the big thing. Because I'm just like, ooh, there's a new pretty cool thing there for this class. I might try that, rather than wait for 2 hours, the entire thing, getting through this live stream and just wait for this one thing. I think it like 20 minutes, like, just bash in some of those like
30
main
minutes.
things. All right, we'll go 30 minutes. Bash in,
hour.
Yeah, like that's a TV show, right? I mean, you know, 25 minutes. Well, it's 10 minutes if you're in America, because like there's 20 minutes of ads. But like, like, you know, it could just be done it can be done much more streamlined. And if you want to have a stream, do it. But do it more. I don't know. Q&A can be difficult, because Guild Wars 2 community and balance isn't great. But that's only community.
Well, I mean, you can key up the questions. So you can put out at the bottom of the video, please, at the bottom of this video, if you have questions, if you have things, and that's what you could mediate it so that it's not crazy live stream, but answering the questions left on the videos that they've put up for each of the specs.
I guess they could do that on their forums, maybe. More
course,
so. I mean, they do that on the forums anyway, but there's less access for a lot of people. That would be a very cool thing for YouTube to have forums and rather than just comments. But they can do community things for that, do community posts and whatnot. I just think there's more modern, better ways that this can be done. It's just I was just there. I was like, this is really interesting, but I'm also very tired now.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's just a lot to take in.
I'm so glad that they're giving the game a lot of attention, and I'm so glad that they're actually thinking about the consequences for World v World and player versus player content, which is really just needs some TLC, especially like World v World. World v World has got some new content for the first time since 1470, which is amazing. It's great, and I'm really hoping that they keep going in that direction.
I love that we're now in a world where we're complaining that we're getting too much Guild Wars 2 coverage.
Wait, I'm not complaining. I just
think it needs to be more refined.
I get it. We have so much content, but is it quality? Is it as quality as it could be? Maybe not. We could be just a little trimming around here and there, but we have the hair, we have the wig, which is important. We just need to do a little bit of trimming and coloring and layering.
I don't know. I'm not complaining that they've done all this incredible work and they're wanting to share it with the community. I just think that there are ways to engage the community that that are more exciting, less 2 hours of patch notes necessarily in that fashion that's interesting. We're in the kind of like the TikTok epoch, aren't we? Where people's attention spans are not as robust as they used to be. And I love that they've given all this detail, and I love that they have all this passion and they're desperate to put forward these new builds. I feel like the way that they're delivering it to the community is doing all their hard work a basically a disservice almost. They put all this hard work in, and people are not going to, not going to receive it early like they want them to. If you see what I mean. Am I being unfair? I hope I'm not being unfair.
But I also see that like this style of content in general would only play to people who are really invested in this.
Yeah.
In this
well,
conversation.
I think this stream is, but I think that's also that it
but
goes
is
into.
It really worth it to make videos about balance patches?
Well, the thing that's the question, isn't it? Like, if you do, doesn't it entice people in with more short form content where you can easily take it in? Like, that's what we've got TikTok and all that kind of stuff for as well. Throw up a TikTok video. Druid has now got new alacrity changes. Blah blah blah. A quick show of that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that each thing has its place. I think that this is fine for the people who
this is
are
a thing
into
that can
this.
stay.
Exactly. I think that it maybe, you're right, should be supplemented with
it should have some accompaniment.
A TikTok video, sure, or
Absolutely.
like a tweet of Oprah giving you get alacrity, you get alacrity, you get alacrity.
See, I love that idea. That's a great idea.
I think their marketing, or at least their Twitter, could be a little improved with tapping into that style of pop culture.
I really do agree, because they do it sometimes.
Very rarely.
But rarely. They've got the.
Very rarely.
It's really. It's that marketing kind of, just a communication thing of how do we get people interested in these different. It's so funny how this is involved in different areas of the game when I start to think about it.
I mean, I guess I don't know. If I was making a decision to develop a video or content around a game, I don't know if I would look at balance patches as an area where I would go to that length, especially if it's not introducing any new visual assets or major changes to the way a whole entire profession would play or elite specialization would play, because these things can be very temporary and they can change from month to month.
And and also they don't know how the audience is going to react to these changes, right? So like,
yeah,
if we, do memes and hype up things that people don't actually like, that's just gonna blow up in your face. So you bring it to them bare bones, you bring it to them with just the data and say, hey, this is subject to change, give us feedback, we're gonna work on this going forward. That's what they're doing. And then when they get their feedback, and if they decide that some of these things are really great and that they should hype them up, then maybe hype them up.
But I agree that the streams are a bit too long. Like, just focus on the major stuff.
Yeah.
Focus on the major stuff. But
I 100% agree with you that they did not need to go through all the slides of the cooldown reductions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go with some examples here because I feel like I want to champion this a little bit more. League of Legends website. I'm looking right now at how they do their... They've literally got a video about explaining about how they approach balance. Like, like that kind of content is gold. That's absolutely diamond. Like, they've got videos and different content on there, like talking about balance and stuff. It's just like, it's doable and it's engaging and it's another reason for people to be on your website. That's the thing. There's just like, it just increases engagement. Like,
no, I agree that I wouldn't mind seeing content around the philosophy of balance and them articulating in video format for players how they go about balancing the game and what players can expect from balance patches, albeit they're not always true to the idea of purity of purpose or like functionality or splits or whatever. But general videos around the topic I think are very, very good and probably would be very successful. But about this specific style, it's very, very specific, for lack of better terms.
I think if anyone can do it or give it a bash, they could, because they've done so. Think about where they've like innovated in different areas. I think their innovation could be they could innovate in marketing more. Like, well, we know they need to, but like there were just chances for them to try things because they are so brave with trying so many things. I'm like, why don't they just like try these things in different places, like in their marketing and stuff? I'm like, I'm not sure how it could hurt. I mean, I know, it's someone producing video content, but they do have video content people. They also have streamers and content creators that can maybe build something for them if they really wanted to.
They don't want to like make content creators, agree that all the balance changes are the height of the best possible thing to come to the game. That when you're producing something as a company, you want to put the best face on it, right? You don't want to have a content creator you don't necessarily have full control over.
I mean, obviously you would control
There'd
it.
Probably be some
it would be like
pre-approval process.
Yeah,
and
I would think so. You would hope so.
Yeah. I don't think it'd be a live stream of just get a bunch of partners on live stream and make them live react. It'd probably be like video format. Let's cut out of this.
I mean, if I was asked to do it, I would continuously harp on the Spectre stuff. And
yeah, Regan linked something useful in the chat as well. That with the Sesame Street thing, it's a really good example of how the power of all of these things and how they need to be used more. I think it's just.
And also in terms of marketing and social media accounts, like these companies are now kind of being personified through their media and their presence. Like they're being a little less serious in terms of very cut and dry, like sentence structure or like reference. They're leaning into the referencing and they're leaning into pop culture and leaning into reactionary content and speaking more like a person. Companies are now like people, and Guild Wars 2 hasn't really caught up to that.
No,
and it's very dry. But when you look at something like Diablo or World of Warcraft,
that's a good example.
They're very good at interacting with the community on that same wavelength, at least on Twitter, where it's kind of like that's how you kind of succeed.
Very
reactionary. This is another topic about marketing.
Yeah.
Media.
We can have that another time. But I like that we all have different thoughts about this.
No, I think the bare minimum that they could do, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily even change the format, just let these two men talk about what they've done get someone then to edit it and chop it up and actually put some pertinent like gameplay footage displaying what they're literally talking about, it juxtaposed with the talking heads, and there it is. It's not it. You don't have to like reinvent the wheel. We're not,
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There are places that don't even go this far, so maybe we should just be thankful for as well.
Oh yeah, we're all spoiled brats. We're all completely
we are spoiled,
brats.
but like this is what the job of the podcast, right? Yeah. We're not going to go on too much further. What we are going to do is we had a big patch this week as well. There was Dragon Bash. There was the ally particle effects and changes,
which is broken.
Apparently, I didn't notice as I was running around because I was like, I need to get Zytaffy for the new stuff. But that's all I was doing.
Were the 2 adventures in the Dragon Bash there in previous years, and I just didn't do them?
Well, there was the race.
There are adventures?
There's the race, and there's a Pinata Bash.
Yes.
No, they've always been there, yeah. Well, they've been there the last couple of last year they were there.
Yeah, I just haven't done them yet.
Wait, you're on the race board?
Well, I know I've done the race now.
Okay.
This year.
All right. Yeah. I didn't do the other one. I'm bad at the other one. Which is unfortunate. Was there anything else in that patch? World versus World. Oh, the rewards for World versus World. Kroof was gushing over the new skins earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that.
I was gushing.
Sorry.
Oh dear. I can confirm as a support player, as a support player in World v World, I'm actually getting some loot bags now, whereas before when you're in a big skirmish, people you're turning pixels into prizes basically, and if you're hitting a lot of targets, you could reap a lot of loot bags. Support, not so much. You get participation, which is great for all your reward tracks and ticket garnering, but in terms of like reaping materials, if in case you're crafting every legendary in the game, not so much. And now we're getting some. So
it was for support as my old Spectre build he did. Because you used to support and give everybody Rot Wallow Venom, and then they would make you tag whenever they hit.
Now you just gotta use your scepter.
That all the time. Yeah.
I can't do it anymore because it's gonna be gone.
Just use your scepter.
Yeah, but you've got until the 27th. Just enjoy it while you can.
Right.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. You can make a eulogy for it.
Gone but not forgotten.
Make a video, be like, this is the last time I get to play this build.
Yeah.
Like a black and white filter and some sad music.
Playground.
Wow. We're going in for the songs today.
So hard.
A League of Their Own soundtrack.
But in the end,
we're all going with songs. So this is the channel of karaoke again, because I started doing karaoke on my channel again. So
nice.
Yeah, it's been good times.
What'd you sing?
Loads of stuff.
Like what?
I've never heard of that song.
Queen.
Yeah, me neither.
We did Queen. We did. What else did we do? Stream. You remember? We did. What else was there? Like really pop songs. There was like Britney Spears. There was NSYNC. There was some random stuff. Backstreet Boys. Nice. That's the one, not NSYNC. Sorry, that was the one that followed. ABBA. Yeah, ABBA was on there. That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Ow.
Anyway, you want to come by? There will be a Lightbringers karaoke. We should do that for the extra life this year. Do karaoke if we hit a reward.
We probably could not get that. Oh, I guess if it's on our own channels, yeah.
If it's karaoke, it's not the official songs though. It's just because we sound so good. You mean it would be risky? I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
That was Jim myself. Borderfon. Yeah. Excellent.
So anyway, that was the patch. That's the balance patch.
The preview.
It was a lot.
Also,
my brain is
fractal dropping. Fractal dropping same day.
Is it fractal dropping the same day as the balance patch?
Yeah.
Sexy
football. Do we know what it's gonna be?
It's about the Jade Sea. You go deeper into the Jade Sea. So if you have missed Jade and you felt like we haven't had a lot of it, don't worry, more is coming.
Oh god.
Okay.
But otherwise, I think that we're gonna end it there, unless anyone has any further comments or questions, or they want to talk about something else. We're gonna stop it there because it's been 3 hours. We started at 12 p.m. Pacific. We will not be here next week. I actually have surgery next week. Yay!
Oh, look.
Nothing serious. It's all good.
Break a leg.
Break a leg.
No.
Retire a leg.
I don't want to, while I'm there. That'd be awkward. Hello, sir. While you were unconscious, we also decided to break your leg and then fix it. Excellent.
Well, when you're in the hospital, is the best place to break a leg.
Might as well, 2 for 1.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
And that's go ahead.
Kroof, tell us what you do, where you do it.
Not me first. Give it to someone else.
Kroof, tell us what you do.
Damn
Where you
it.
do it.
I tried. I don't think that's any of your business. Hi everyone, I'm Kroof. I do various videos on YouTube, mostly about Guild Wars 2, but I've also been playing the shit out of Diablo 4, and it is so good. So I might make a little review video about Diablo. And
Have you ever played Path of Exile?
a little bit, not really into that. It was a little too much for me. It was a little.
Oh, okay.
I was overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's
But I'll stream here on Twitch. There have been drops. I might stream a little bit this weekend. But thank you all so much. Had a great day.
Beautiful. Lovely. Boots. The member of the podcast who's probably the most sad right now because of changes.
I don't know. I'll get over it.
Okay.
It's just that one thing. It's just that literally that one trait.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
That's what I do right
So, yeah. You can find me over on YouTube at World of Enders. I've been doing adventures recently, and going through them, getting pretty good on those leaderboards.
Yeah, you're getting up there. You're getting up there. I see your name there.
Go ahead and watch them if you want tricks, and tips on how to get better at them. I think we go through them together and try to learn.
I'm gonna say something so bad right now.
Next. That's what you do. What you do. And thank you, Boots, for being here. And
I'm Fornax, the Crichton Herald. I make Guild Wars 2 content over on YouTube and occasionally stream here on Twitch. That's me. And I'll be watching Boots' video because I have to do something with the chat, Garen. So all these people's content is amazing, so watch them.
Yours too.
No, you.
Oh, you. Yeah, I don't know so much about the Jebro karaoke, but
Yeah. It's okay. The Grammys have yet to contact you for consideration, but
yeah, we'll see about that. I'll have to rewatch the VOD.
fine. Well, we've got 3 awesome creators that are here. There was also me, where this is also shown on a Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific-ish, unless it's a balance patch, which today was different. It was 12 p.m. Pacific. We watched the balance patch. If you got any feedback or want to think about some stuff you want us to talk about, then please drop a comment below in the YouTube comments or wherever you watch this. Also, review the podcast if you got the opportunity. We'd muchly appreciate that as well. Twitch.tv/JebroUnity on a Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific mostly. As I said, next week it's not going to be there. If you want to go and check out the anchor.fm/JebroUnity as well site, you can go and listen to all the stuff, as well as searching for the Lightbringers pretty much on Google Podcast. Actually, that's a long thing to kind of search for. Just do Lightbringers Podcast GW2 and you'll find it in all the right places. Exactly. So I like how you both added an O and an and then Boots just looked the same. But please come and join us and check out all their wonderful content, because they're all producing wonderful things right now. Their live streams, all the things, and we'll see you next time on the Lightbringers Podcast in a couple of weeks. Tons of content for you to envelop within your body. Sorry, what?
Good luck with the surgery.
Oh yeah, surgery. I forgot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
fuck.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. See you soon, peeps. Thanks so much for watching. Have an excellent one. And yes, thank you for the well wishes.
I'm gonna go and hail 2 burgers.
Oh, 2 burgers. Better than 1 burger, Kroof.
I might get 3.
Oh, 4.
I got paid today.
Oh,
Oh, yummy.
yummy. Bye.
I need
Excellent,
more
people.
Forces World.
Well done.
I need those skins.
Spanky, good job.
Maybe I'll just do Virtuoso. That's pretty good.
tricks, and cities.
Tips, tricks, and what?
Cities.
Ibbies? Oh,
Yeah,
That's what I thought you were
tips,
saying.
tricks, and titties. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Oh, you come over to my channel if you want some tips, tricks, and some titties.
I thought he said ticks. I'm like, that's not
Oh,
really
that
I
like.
did say that
That's-
at some point.
Okay, that's
Oh.
good. I thought I heard.
There is a bit of buffering during that segment,
Yeah.
and you can
It's
feel it with a
weird.
lot of
It's-
things that start with T.
I think in one of the first episodes, I also could not say that phrase, and I
Tips
messed
and
up the
tricks.
same way.
Oh,
Trip him.
Oop! You got tripped up.
yeah.
Amazing.
Grace, how sweet
Tits
the
and
sound.
ticks. That's what you want to say. Tits
Yep.
and ticks.
Tits,
Yeah,
tits, and ticks.
that's
If
the
I'm
best
gonna-
thing you can do.
If you're going to do anything, do the ticks. I don't know. I'm going to raid Rookery, actually. They are streaming.
Oh, lovely.
Oh my god! I know her!
Just drops and stuff on people, so go and hang out there.
Called me cool one day!
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Good point, Yukon. The warrior quickness for Berserker, being on burst skills means that you could only give quickness to people once you've already started doing your bursts, which is a little bit into the fight.
But I think you gain all your resources when you first start on a raid boss. I think they made that
Really?
change.
You get
they-
full Berserker?
Yeah, you
Full,
gain all life force. You gain not all energy. I think.
I don't think you've
gain-
ever gained all adrenaline in the in previously.
Yeah,
I mean, you have 2 utility skills that give you all.
it's
adrenaline.
not like it's hard.
No,
That's
but
what.
still.
I don't know. Anyway, we're still going while we're raiding, so it's fine. We're just giving you entertainment in the meantime.
It's funny because a friend of mine who I World v World with was saying that they want to have all the speed boosts removed from like say like a thief's build when they're not in combat, because they can just flit about the map. You can't catch them even when they're out of combat, and he wanted to be able to limit them so that, because it's incredibly annoying. They can zap in, zap out. I suppose it's an advantage for them, but what it means is that they can do whatever they want in and or out of combat without any limitations. Which,
We're gonna go now because we're about to go.
sorry,
Bye.
yes,
All
yes.
right.
Everyone.
Bye.
No, the stream. I had to say bye.
food.
I had to say bye because of the stream.